In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Do you think that calling Elon Musk a dick is effective messaging for confronting what is a potentially irreversible transformation of the U.S. government?
Well, he is a dick.
Wow.
Dismantling the Department of Labor, dismantling the Department of Education, dismantling all of our consumer protection agencies.
Good.
It's also important to get the attention of the American public and call Elon Musk out for what he is.
Shut up, bitch!
What I think is really important and what the American public want is for us to bring actual weapons to this bar fight.
Fuck around and find out.
This is an actual fight for democracy, for the future of this country.
I doubt it.
You are fake news.
I will eat your ass.
Very fake news.
That's a big game, man.
I'll do it.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it.
Look at this fat dude.
All right, America, go to the YouTube right now. Skag free, whoever he is.
Dude, Matt straight up sucks.
How dare you?
All right, go.
In 5, 4, 3.
I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live for Sunday, February 16th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Now, let me start by addressing the rumors. No, I do not have any of Elon Musk's children secretly living in my home. At this point, everybody probably should be presumed to, but I do not. And yes, I will get to the weekend's drama story, although, of course, there are important parental morality principles associated with this story, so it's not pure indulgence, but we'll get to that in a moment. Great guest tonight. Alison Morrow is back to continue our ongoing discussion of, the anti-farmer crackdown. If you're a guy who's looking to raise food and sell it to people, perhaps, stop right there. The government will make sure all of that food goes to waste at gunpoint. I'll get to that in the next half hour or so. Plus, apparently thousands of IRS employees are about to be laid off. So even though I don't necessarily like tastelessly celebrating people getting fired, I'll happily celebrate it in that context, of course. The Justice Department has dropped the corruption case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams in a move that prosecutors and Democrats say, it's just additional corruption. The Trump administration is just quid pro quoing all over again, is the claim. We'll visit that topic. And another would-be transgender mass shooter is stopped in Indiana. Before I get out of here, I have Hoax Hate double feature for you. We'll catch up with your Super Chats as well. Our friend Knuckle Hunky Buck will join us for Super Chat in his usual Sunday appearance. Speaking of, hey, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month over on my website. It's mattchristiansenmedia.com or mattis.k if you prefer brevity. Listener support is what keeps my operation running. And it, of course, is hugely appreciated. It not only helps me sustain, it makes sure I can pay the people who contribute to the show and keep it operating as well. There are perks available for your support. mattchristiansenmedia.com/support, linked in the description. And we got to say hi to our friendly listener-owned business for the evening as well, and that's our friends over at Western Razor Company. We know we're being lied to on a daily basis by our government, by corporate media, and by razor companies too. Think about it. Their ads used to appeal to your masculinity. And then they took advantage of your sensitivity with aloe strips. They kept adding blades, thinking you wouldn't notice how clogged they got. And the more they changed, the more plastic and disposable they became. The honest truth is those other razor brands are lying straight to your face, and our friends at Western Razor are not going to take it anymore. That's why their safety razors are 100% metal, made in the USA and made with integrity. The replacement blades are inexpensive too, just pennies each. So you get a great shave and you save money long term, because when you buy a Western razor once, it's going to last you forever. Listeners can get a 10% discount on any order when they use promo code MATT10 at checkout. Don't let those other razor brands lie to your face. Go to westernrazor.com. Order a Western razor today. Western Razor, the last razor you will ever need. Find everything you need from our friends at Western Razor, plus other great offers from the rest of our friendly listener-owned businesses, including Hero Soap Company, Phoenix Ammunition, Hope Innovations, and more. It's at mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners, for listeners. And hey, speaking of our friends over at Hope Innovations, of course, all month long, Hope Innovations, they are sponsoring the Tower of Babble Hydroponics Kit Super Chat sweepstakes. The best or the funniest or the most clever Super Chats will be acknowledged with the very special sounder.
I love you.
And then at the end of the month, one of those chatters will be selected to receive a free hydroponics kit from Hope Innovations. That's $1,000 value. Grow awesome, healthy food right at home. If you hear that sounder responding to your chat,
I love
you have been selected for entry. But there is only one hitch. You got to head over to the giveaway page on my website. It's linked in the description for you, but it's also right there on the homepage, mattchristiansenmedia.com/giveaway. And there you can submit an email address that corresponds with your Super Chat name. And I need that to contact you if you win, because I can't message you through Super Chat. YouTube doesn't give me a way to do that. Rumble doesn't give me a way to do that. Thanks for supporting the show. Thanks to our friends at Hope Innovations for sponsoring the sweepstakes, mattchristiansenmedia.com/giveaway for all the for all the information. Well, moving into the news, maybe my town is the last to get these gang members. I like to think maybe that's the case, but I know it's not, because here in beautiful Bozeman, Montana, we actually do get a lot of criminal activity or drug trafficking or the like, because we're right on Interstate 90 between Seattle and Minneapolis. So you get a lot of problem characters like this coming through town sometimes. But so I'm not actually surprised that Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang famous for taking over just a handful of apartment buildings in Colorado, Aurora specifically, I'm not necessarily surprised that they are here. Frankly, I'm most surprised that they actually found housing in this town. That's very difficult. Or maybe they are part of the reason why housing is so difficult to find in this town. But I'm also shocked that they didn't self-deport. As you can see in this photo, the last 6 weeks or so of weather, just feet of snow, brutally cold temperatures, absolutely Arctic. But somehow they got very hardy down in Venezuela because they've been hanging around town. But yeah, the Homeland Security Investigations Unit for Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and Montana, ICE agents for that particular unit, arrested 6 known Tren de Aragua members just down the street in Belgrade, Montana. It's a Bozeman neighbor town, really the same town, just a different name. But this was on Wednesday, February 12th. Now, exact location where these arrests took place, unknown as far as I've seen. Exact circumstances of the arrests unknown, but Gallatin County Sheriff Dan Springer did offer some additional insight into how this came to be, and specifically it was through the work of the Gallatin County Sheriff's Department's Drug Task Force. The sheriff says his department identified these gang members living in the area. They informed ICE, and ICE came with warrants and took them out to be deported. Now, how do they know that they are Tren de Aragua members? Well, Sheriff Springer says his department has an ear to the ground all the time, and they hear things and they see things, and gang members apparently love to brag, he says. So in other words, it sounds like he put some informants or honeypots or people who are very conversational. He put them to work, and he got some information from these gang members. Good for him. Sheriff Springer says he's known about the gang presence for years in Gallatin County and in Bozeman, actually. It's just that ICE didn't really care until now. And now he called up ICE specifically in the last month. They've actually started to care. So draw your own conclusions about what change may explain that. But takeaway here, no matter where you live, no matter how safe you think it is, no matter how insulated you think it is not. Learn to use a firearm, carry it with you always in full compliance with local, state, and federal regulations, of course, just in case my FBI listener is still tuning into the stream.
Fed.
Now, in recent Wednesday streams, we have followed and discussed the ongoing saga of Dank Demoss, the impossibly obese Detroit female rapper who is currently suing Lyft, the rideshare company, because the driver, a Lyft driver, refused to pick her up on account of how insanely fat she is. He said his tires could not possibly support this weight. But she is reportedly 500 pounds. Last week, she appeared on the Breakfast Club radio show, discussed that on the Wednesday stream. She said she deserves accommodations like the LGBTQ community gets, and she refused to use the word fat. She doesn't like that. That's a pejorative, so it's LGBTQF now. Or maybe O for obese. I don't know. Whatever term she prefers. Maybe the L doubles for large. Whatever. But this week, as part of her lawsuit, she is now proving that she does indeed fit in a normal size car. So per Dank Demoss's Instagram, here she is not only riding in, but also driving actually two different cars.
Ride is ready.
As a woman, I am not a doctor. I cannot save you.
We got everything.
I don't know, y'all. I might just cut the reins. Like me, I want some shit that you can never get your hands on. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Ask me if I care. I don't really give a fuck.
Congratulations, butthead.
You notice it said, "Tell Al that Dank sent you." Okay, so this is actually a promotional post. I guess it is evidence for her lawsuit, but it's also a promotional post. And those are two different cars. I thought they were the same car. They're both black SUVs. If you're not looking closely, they kind of look the same. They're actually two drastically different cars. The first one that she gets in and sits in the back of, that is a Chevy, a compact Chevy SUV, a Chevy Trax. And then she drives away in a Range Rover. And this promotional post is for a used car dealer called 24th and Lapeer Auto. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this is a used car dealer north of Detroit. And those cars are available. So if you want that piece of history, if you want the Dank Demoss-driven Range Rover, that can be yours for just $40,000. And it comes as is, no warranty, as far as I can tell. So I would be sure to have an independent mechanic check out the suspension on that. Make sure that it's not damaged after carrying that significant load. If you are on more of a budget, but you would still like a piece of Dank Demoss history, you can get that Chevy Trax. And that's much more affordable. Only $14,000. Those are available at 24th and Lapeer Auto, this used car dealer in the north of Detroit. Look them up, I guess. Anyway. It's the talk of the internet in conservative politics over the weekend. And yes, I am going to reluctantly enter the arena. Now, I don't personally enjoy or look to highlight personal drama, but I do think there are important reasons to consider this story. These are not in the order of importance. So they're actually reverse order of importance. But first point, Elon Musk is one of the biggest people in government and politics right now. And when there's a conservative influencer who suddenly appears and say, hey, I just had his baby, but also please respect my privacy and don't inquire anymore. That is news itself. But more importantly, there are principles about parenthood and morality here that I think are very important to think about and that were very strongly debated on Twitter over the weekend. But okay, what happened? Out of nowhere on Friday night, Valentine's Day night, if you think that might be a significant piece of the story. But Ashley St. Clair, who has long been a prominent figure in pro-Trump politics online. I don't know much about her personally. I know that she worked for the Babylon Bee, but she's not a person I've ever spoken to or anything like that. But anyway, prominent, conservative influencer type person. She just posts this statement on her X account that reads, 5 months ago, I welcomed a new baby into the world. Elon Musk is the father. I've not previously disclosed this to protect our child's privacy and safety, but in recent days, it has become clear that tabloid media intends to do so, regardless of the harm it will cause. I intend to allow our child to grow in a normal and safe environment. For that reason, I ask that media honor our child's privacy and refrain from invasive reporting. Now, before I get more into this story, important to note, this is claimed. As far as I'm aware, this is unconfirmed. There are no photos of this baby, no formal acknowledgement of this baby from Elon Musk or his team. No real proof that the baby is his. And I'm not saying it's fake. I'm saying we have one side of this story. And even if it is true that there is a baby between them, we don't actually know the exact circumstances. Now, she just gave a tell-all to the New York Post, in which a lot of that is implied, hinted at. I mean, it sounds like they had some kind of fling and there was what sounds like an unintended pregnancy that resulted in this baby. But we don't actually get the specifics. Was it intentional? Was it accidental? I've heard a lot of people saying it was actually IVF. She says my pregnancy in describing what happened, but I guess in a weird way, you might say my pregnancy to refer to someone else, like a surrogate carrying a child. I don't know. The point is we don't know all the details. But I don't think that it's a smart take to dismiss this entirely and say, well, it's obviously fake. It's not real. It does fit the pattern of behavior for both parties, generally speaking. Now, as far as I gather, and this is just people, sources with knowledge say, okay, Ashley St. Clair does have a reputation of chasing men, shall we say. And Elon Musk, apparently assuming this is his child, 13th child with now 4 different mothers, I believe is the tally, if this is what it appears to be. But even if it isn't, as I mentioned, the pattern of behavior, Elon Musk has certainly had children out of wedlock. He's had multiple children with multiple women. This would not be out of character. This would not be new. Now, as far as I've seen, Elon Musk has said nothing about it except responding to a tweet from Milo Yiannopoulos. Yesterday, Milo posted that Ashley St. Clair plotted for half a decade to ensnare Elon Musk. And he posted a screenshot of some of her tweeting from back in 2020. And in response to that, Elon responded with one word, whoa. That is it. Whoa. And that actually prompted Ashley St. Clair to respond in a now deleted tweet. She said, Elon, we've been trying to communicate, we, as in her and her family and her team, I guess, we've been trying to communicate for the past several days, and you have not responded. When are you going to reply to us? Instead of publicly responding to smears from an individual who just posted photos of me in underwear at 15 years old. So that is our first piece of wisdom to gather from this case. Ladies, it is highly advisable to have children with men to whom you are married, who live in your house, so that disputes like this are not addressed, resolved, discussed, whatever, on Twitter for everyone to see. It is also not advisable to make this sort of post the day after you said, please respect my privacy. Then you're on Twitter the next day asking for attention from one of the biggest accounts on the internet. But it's not just slamming women here, okay? No pun intended, I guess. Likewise for men, also equally advisable to reserve your fatherhood, your most important role in life. Reserve that for women worthy of the ring. Your children deserve better than this sort of public dispute between mom and dad. It's not good for them, which is the biggest problem of all of this. The most important reason not to engage in this sort of behavior, and by that I mean whatever the casual hookup may be outside of wedlock. I know that, not everybody's Elon Musk and having women throw themselves at you, but you may have varying degrees of a similar circumstance. The reason that is a problem is not just because it can take you down as a man. It's because it's going to set up a less than ideal circumstance for your children. Indeed, even a damaging circumstance for your children. And that's not fair to them. You have an obligation to give those children the best prospect for prosperity that you possibly can. So women with whom you are, to whom you are not married, women you have no intent to marry, steer clear. Now, Elon has not responded any further as far as I've seen. And then fresh off the plea for privacy, an outrage for media attempting to cover the story. Well, there's Ashley St. Clair with a feature story published in the New York Post last night. Just spilling the details in terms of how this happened. Not just that, but as you can see, a lot of staged photography with wardrobe choices, posing, all of that stuff. And the interview was at her glitzy Manhattan pad, according to the New York Post reporters. According to Ashley's lawyer, the two, as in she and Elon Musk and their legal representatives, they've been privately working toward the creation of an agreement about raising this child. But she had to go public. They wanted to do this privately. She had to go public because a tabloid reporter had the scoop and had just been ambushing Ashley and her family. Now, the lawyer for Ashley says that they're waiting for Elon to publicly acknowledge his parental role with Ashley to end all of this unwarranted speculation. Okay, but why? Well, if the goal was to be private, you just made it public. And now it's on him to go public. Now he has an obligation to go public because you made that decision, even though you said that being private was the goal. And it's implied that it was a mutual goal, that they both wanted to keep things private. If the tabloid journalism made it impossible to hide, that's the explanation for coming out. Oh, the reporters, they were after me. Then why are you spilling everything to effectively tabloid journalism? That's what we're looking at here. Why are you giving all the details to the New York Post? Why are you doing the staged photography? As far as how this came to be, St. Clair says the relationship began on Twitter, in Twitter interactions, and eventually he messaged her. He slid into those DMs and slid into something else, apparently. St. Clair was working at the Babylon Bee at the time. And Elon Musk, of course, restored the Babylon Bee's X account or Twitter account when he bought Twitter. The Babylon Bee CEO asked Ashley St. Clair to go to San Francisco to interview Elon, and thus the relationship began. Now, the story implies, as I mentioned, that the pregnancy was natural and unplanned. She says she was told to keep it a secret. And she says Elon Musk got her a fancy financial district apartment in New York City, as well as security. But she says there was no romance. And she was forced to spend her second pregnancy alone. And you wonder if the Valentine's Day disclosure had a little something to do with that particular sentiment. The Post reporters in this story, they say they did view texts between St. Clair and Elon Musk's money manager, which appear to show Elon's wish to remain off the birth certificate, whatever that means. You got to see the text messages to evaluate yourself, but that's really the only evidence that we've seen so far. Again, I'm not saying it's fake. It's just you have to take people at their word is whether you believe this or not. Now, St. Clair said she had been harassed by Elon fans on the street who uncovered the story, and then the tabloids took it from there. And that's how all of this was right about to break out. We were going to learn about it anyway. Well, which tabloid had the story? She declined to name them. We're not going to learn what reporters were hounding her, what publication was right about to break this news. St. Clair says she warned Elon's people that she was going to go public on Friday, but they ignored her warning, and so she did it anyway. Now, my personal guesses, my personal interpretation about this story, I think probably largely true, as in it is Elon Musk's baby, to the extent it fits the pattern of behavior for both parties involved. Now, the part about the tabloid invading privacy, probably false. My bet, in terms of what happened here, negotiations between them broke down when they're trying to create this agreement. And this is a woman scorned by the lack of romance on Valentine's Day or whatever other reason. She obviously was expecting more of him that he's not delivering. Something to that effect. I don't think there was some tabloid invading her privacy and about to break the story, especially since she won't name them. I think that was a made up way to get this to get this information out there and apply pressure to Elon Musk while still being the good guy, is my guess at what's happened here. Because the claims about the tabloid reporting, they make no sense. Oh, I'm so mad at these unethical, invasive tabloid reporters. Oh, really? Who are they? I'd like to know so that we could scrutinize them. Well, I won't say. It's very important to protect them. Why is it important to protect them? Shouldn't we all know who these people are since they're such scumbags? Privacy, very important to me and my child. Now here, read a fully detailed tabloid-style report about me and my child with photography that I posed for. Is privacy important or is it not? Now, even if I granted the story about tabloid reporters pursuing this, and it's like, well, I had to get out of ahead of the story before they released the story. There are many different ways to tell this story that aren't quite as flashy, aren't quite as attention-seeking for this particular person. So I think that entire part is just classic female nonsense. It's totally contradictory. It's totally ridiculous. The only organizing principle to all of it is, hey, everybody, look at me. And I suspect the organizing principle is, hey, everybody, look at me, because the person that she wants to look at her is not. And so this is some sort of attempt to try to force that. Now, some takeaways for the rest of us, because I mentioned there actually is value to this, I hope, instead of just, indulging in the modern Jerry Springer type topics. Now, assuming this story is true, this baby is Elon Musk's, this child is a victim in this situation. And I say that relatively speaking, of course. It's great that there was no decision to terminate that pregnancy or something like that. Obviously, you're happy that the life exists, but the point is that life is owed the greatest prospect at success that those parents can provide. And it doesn't look like those parents are providing it. The dad is absent, at least according to her side of the story. Mom appears to be crazy with attention-seeking behavior publicly instead of just focusing on that kid, despite the claims otherwise. The reason that you keep the sexual relationship and the pregnancy that is that inherently goes along with it within the confines of marriage is not just to protect yourself, though that is a nice bonus, not just to protect your spouse, though that is a nice bonus as well. It is to protect your children. If you create life, you owe that life the best possible chance at prosperity. And the best chance at prosperity is through mom and dad together, bonded in marriage, till death do they part. And that's why being a dad is a lot more than just cutting a check. And being a mom is a lot more than just feeding or wiping butts or all the other nurturing, the things that are traditionally motherly roles. It is a commitment to the other parent on behalf of the child. And when we remember that and we conduct our business in this regard accordingly, we do better for ourselves, but more importantly, we do right by our children. And as told, and again, this story could change. We have one side of it, but as told, it appears that both parties in this arrangement are failing that child. And to me, this will always be a major point of skepticism about Elon Musk and really any man who lives this way. And yeah, I think Elon Musk has built and is building incredible things. I respect him for that. And yeah, I think he's doing the right thing with government in rooting out the waste and the fraud. But for any man who betrays a commitment to his children in this way, not remaining faithful to the mother of his children in this way, I can never really fully trust you because, well, I know that's true for a lot of people. Like circumstances can go south. There's the ideal and then there's reality, and those things sometimes are very different. I get it. I don't mean to condemn every man who maybe has had some sort of fallout with his wife or can't be as big a part of his children's lives as he would want to be. What I'm saying with Elon Musk is he's doing this repeatedly, and it appears to be intentional. It's not like, oh man, I really dreamed of building a life with that woman together and she just went kooky and now I have to be separated from her and I only see my children part-time and it's awful. I wish it wasn't that way, but it is what it is. there's an ongoing record of this, like getting women pregnant and not being a fully present part of the lives of the family that you've just created. And so how am I supposed to fully trust a guy that appears to be doing that intentionally? I don't know. If your children can't fully trust you, who the hell can? Again, I'm not trying to say, oh, he's an awful man. I fully appreciate a lot of the stuff he's doing, but it is really hard to fully trust a guy who's engaging in this sort of behavior, whether he's like the right-hand man to the president of the United States or whether he's just a guy in town I know and maybe I have some sort of working relationship with or a family friend or something like that. But bottom line for men, do not bang sluts. Okay? It is, it's not just bad for you, it's bad for your kids, and that's even more important. And I know it's exceptionally difficult. I was living this life 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was. But find a woman who is worthy of being the mother of your children, marry her, and stay with her for those children. And then, you know, there's going to be fights, there's going to be conflict, there's all that sort of stuff. But the bullshit fights that we're observing right now, those will stay properly confined within your own home where they belong. They won't be on Twitter where it's completely embarrassing, but more importantly, damaging for your children. Now, the last thing I want to say about this story, I find it just extremely odd that as far as I've seen, there's effectively no left-wing media interest in this story. I didn't really hear any mention of this story at all in the Sunday news shows this morning. I don't really see any coverage in your typical left-wing sources, MSNBC, Huffington Post, that sort of stuff. And I would expect them to be just gobbling this up. It's the guy they hate. Great way to smear him. It challenges that traditional conservative morality narrative that they love to challenge. Although I don't think, Elon Musk, I don't think has presented himself as like a man of traditional and or Christian morality or something like that. But he, to the extent he's aligned with conservatives, they love to try to paint that hypocrisy regardless. And obviously I can't imagine that these people just haven't heard. I know it's kind of a Twitter focused topic, but it's all people were talking about on X over the weekend. So it's not like, I didn't see what everybody saw. So I don't really know how to interpret that silence. Do they know that this story is actually crap? And maybe it turns out to be. Maybe everything I said is total nonsense because it's based on false premises. Or maybe the progressive reporters who would otherwise eat this up, that they actually think having kids out of wedlock in this way, that's just fine. They don't want to be hypocrites themselves. Who would we be to call out this sort of behavior? That would be consistent, but it's not like they're afraid of being hypocrites in every other context. So it is really strange to me that the left-wing hit pieces are not flowing with this story, unless I've missed them, in which case please send them to me. Or if you have thoughts about why, what's the deal with the absence of left-wing scrutiny on this story, I welcome them. I find it to be something of a mystery. But I will move on to a topic probably more deserving of discussion. And that's, the continued cuts. I guess I've been critical of Elon Musk enough here. We'll move on to the good things that DOJ and company are doing. Because after all, that's why he's so high profile now, just taking the axe to the spending of the federal government. Maybe axe is overstated, but at least cutting it back some. And finally, the federal agency deserving of massive cuts and merciless firings the most deserving agency, that is, they're going to get it, it sounds like. Because not even Democrats desperately protesting on behalf of the Treasury, as they were doing the other week, not even they can stop it. It probably should have been the first target of DOJ, actually. But at least it sounds like it's going to be a target of DOJ. Better late than never, especially if late is a matter of weeks, not years. At least for this particular operation. Now, recently, Trump administration officials met with the Office of Personnel Management, that's Fed HR, to prepare for mass layoffs, but specifically down at the IRS. According to the Washington Post, 6 people with knowledge say Treasury officials are discussing laying off 9,000 employees still in their probationary period. So I guess newer workers. The cuts are set to happen immediately. I've seen reports as high as 15,000. Now, there are lots and lots and lots of IRS workers, so this is still a small percentage. It's not like eliminating the agency, but hey, fewer of those people is a win. The layoffs are, especially where they're working, because it says the layoffs are largely targeting tax collection. So it's not just people who work in IRS overhead, the most wasteful thing possibly imaginable. But it sounds like people, responsible for the tax collection itself, at least according to the Washington Post reporting. Now, hopefully this means it's just Hunter Biden season for everybody. Just evade away, even though it won't be. But it did make me wonder, if Trump is dead serious about ending the income tax, as he's discussed in the past, and he's talked about replacing the income tax with tariffs or other revenue streams like we used to do back before 1913 or whatever it was. Now, obviously, to amend the tax code, to change the law, Trump would have to have an act of Congress. He can't just do it himself. He can't rewrite the law himself. But I thought about it. Well, like Joe Biden pardoned Hunter for such things. Maybe Trump doesn't really need Congress at all. What if he just gave everyone a pardon every year of his presidency for tax evasion charges, and we just did away with the IRS that way? That actually is completely constitutional. And it's right in line with all the mass pardoning that's so hot right now. But you would completely crush the IRS and at least that particular piece of the federal government. Just pardon all tax evasion, and you probably get some nice economic growth for your troubles. Now, the only way you might have a legal problem with that, again, the president has really unrestricted pardon power, unqualified. But one of those qualifications is you can't actually pardon someone for a future crime. So the president can't use his pardon power to say that guy over there, if he murders someone on federal land in the future, that's okay. You can't give someone permission to commit a future crime. So if Trump came out and said, hey, everybody, don't pay your taxes and I'll make sure you don't get prosecuted, he would be forgiving a future crime. But if there was some sort of understanding, like go ahead and evade your taxes and you will be pardoned if you are charged by the DOJ. If there was some sort of understanding and everybody en masse just did not pay their taxes, which is also, it's complicated because there's all that automatic employer withholding and all that stuff. But I'm just saying, if you had some kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, everybody knew, and they did it, and then Trump mass pardoned everybody, that would still be pardoning for a crime already committed. And as far as I'm aware, there would not be a legal problem with that, although I'm sure someone would try to raise one. Anyway, moving on to more realistic scenarios. The Trump team is also moving to fire more than 400 Homeland Security employees and 400 Environmental Protection Agency employees.
Good.
Workers at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Department of Agriculture have also been told to prepare for cuts. So in the coming weeks, we will be hearing plenty more about how terrible it is to trim the government workforce for efficiency. All of this coming from the same people who rabidly wanted everyone who refused to take the COVID vaccine just brutally fired. But now, firing federal employees is the worst possible thing imaginable. Anyway, let's get into the interview segment. Alison Morrow is back tonight. And she can't join live, but we pre-recorded as we usually do. We're continuing our discussion on food production and the constant government crackdown against it. Farmers raided just for trying to sell their products to willing customers. Egg prices still skyrocketing because the government says kill all those chickens. Plenty more. Segment's about 35 minutes. See you on the other side. Welcome back. My guest tonight is Alison Morrow, former TV reporter turned independent. Find her, of course, at alisonmorrow.locals.com or at Alison Morrow on YouTube, linked in the description for your convenience. Alison, welcome back, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's always fun.
Well, you are keeping me in touch with farming world and what's going on with food production. And so we're going to continue some of that discussion tonight. And you've been speaking with some farmers who are pushing back against the regulatory environment, the red tape, and trying to bring their product straight to consumers, which apparently is much more complicated than it should be. But you recently posted an interview with this Virginia farmer, Bryson Lipscomb. What is Bryson's story? What is he trying to accomplish?
Bryson is one of the farmers that has developed this idea of having a private membership club, essentially, a co-op, where you pay a membership fee and then you get products that might otherwise be illegal to sell. For instance, raw milk, okay? In certain states, you can't sell raw milk for human consumption. And what some farmers are doing is saying, you basically pay for us to manage your cow, all right? You're paying into the membership co-op. You pay us a certain amount of money per month, and we take care of your cow, and then you get milk from the cow. And there are other regulations that this helps bypass. For instance, people may not realize that if you raise a steer, like we have a steer in our backyard, if our neighbor says, hey, could we have a roast from that steer when you butcher him? I can't sell my neighbor a roast without it being USDA inspected. Well, for me to go get my steer USDA inspected at a particular butcher shop, it could take a very long time and certainly would be cost prohibitive for somebody like me who's just got one steer. It works for massive farms. And this is why some might argue we have the food system we do in the United States, where there are fewer and fewer small farmers and more large corporate farms, because they're the ones that can withstand the financial burden of the regulatory system that we have. Now, of course, the government has said, well, this is to keep people safe. I'll leave it to your viewers to decide whether they think America is healthier right now than it was before the regulations. It's funny because as I hear people criticizing RFK Jr., I saw a meme somebody tweeted out a while ago that was like, oh, you know what? No, it was I think it may have been the Babylon Bee headline was world's fattest, sickest country wants to try something different, you know, because that's what everybody's freaking out about. It would be one thing if the United States was a leader in health, but I think we clearly know that we're not. So to answer your question, that's what Bryson Lipscomb is trying to do, is really address the health of our food, to give you meat in some cases, milk in other cases, that is raised from animals that are living a highly nutritious, appropriate for their particular breed of livestock life, and that you will benefit those nutrient dense foods. But to do so, he has to, in his opinion, and the opinion of many other farmers who are doing the same thing, he has to have a private membership club so that he doesn't go to jail, have the sheriff's office show up at his house. And he has even said, he said in the interview I did with him, that he has militia on his speed dial in case the local food regulators come to his house. I find it crazy that we are at that place in the United States of America where a farmer is going to have to face off with a food regulatory agents.
I laugh not because it's not real, because it's so absurd. And I want, there's a portion of his commentary from your interview that I want to offer. These people, as in the state regulators, are going to these properties. They're seizing the meat or the milk or whatever, and they're just dumping it. And so this is not some like insane worry of something that's never going to happen. These things are happening in reality. And before I get to that, I just want to be clear on this arrangement with the raw milk, because I'm not sure I even understand. So let's say I wanted Bryson or Amos Miller or someone like that to offer me raw milk. To get around the regulators, I have to own the cow and they take care of that cow for me. But does that mean that only I can have that milk, or can anybody else have that milk?
It depends on the state. When I lived in Washington State, you could buy raw milk for human consumption. You could buy it at the grocery store. And it was very different than here in Florida, where you have to buy it for pet consumption only. So this is the farmer's choice. They can either put a label on the milk that says for pet consumption only, which they know is being deceptive. If I were doing it, I wouldn't do that personally. I will say this. I have bought raw milk for people who do that. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying at the end of the day, you know you're selling it for human consumption. And for me, I'm not comfortable saying for pet consumption only when I know that people are drinking it, because if the government comes and asks me, what are you doing? I'm going to tell them the truth. Yeah, I'm selling for people to drink, go away. Let my customers drink the milk if they want to drink it. So the other option, if you're in a state like Florida, Virginia, Pennsylvania, is to have one of these private clubs where you're not buying the milk, you're buying the cow. And that's how you do it with butchering too. Like I could sell, and this isn't a state by state thing, this is a federal rule. If you're selling a cut of meat, you have to have it USDA inspected. But if you're selling a quarter of your cow, you don't. So if I have the steer, for instance, who is probably heading to the freezer in the next 6 months, if my friends want some of it, I say, okay, either you go in on the butchering cost with me or you pay me like a quarter of the cost to raise this cow. In which case you own the cow so you can do what you want with it. Well, for now. We'll see if that, because you're going to play this clip. We're clearly with a raw milk deal. The government will come to your farm and tell you have to dump it all out. And they'll do that with meat too. You have to get rid of all of it. And these farmers will say, well, wait a second, this is my animal. What if I want to feed it to my dog? Maybe I'm not going to feed it to people, which, by the way, when should the government be able to come into your living room and tell you you can't eat, like you personally cannot go eat the food that you grew yourself? This is nuts. But even if you say, all right, I'm going to feed it to my dog, shouldn't you have the right to make it dog food? But no, in these cases, these are real modern day examples. There will be dumpsters, like tens of thousands of dollars worth of food in a dumpster, and they will not let you go dumpster diving for your own food. It really is incredulous.
Yeah, here is Bryson Lipscomb explaining that sort of situation.
This was not about raw milk. This was about the butchered red meat that did not have a USDA stamp on it, essentially, okay? Instead of dumping raw milk out, what they did was the day after the trial, they showed up with a box truck, unloaded all of Sam Fisher's meat into this box truck, and then they took it down the road to the local dump and they threw all that meat in the dump site. The worst part about this story to me is that the sheriff, this is Cumberland County, Virginia, Sheriff Daryl Hodges, assigned a deputy, a posted guard, an armed sentry, posted my tax dollars for a deputy to sit at that dump for 24 hours until the landfill truck came and to pick up that canister to take it away, all to keep some poor Amish kid from climbing down in there and like scavenging some scrapple out so he could have a good breakfast. Can you imagine?
So my question, the Amish kid story, that's not a hypothetical. That's a real thing that happened?
Yeah, that's a real story. And I've interviewed people who have had that happen to them. $90,000 worth of raw dairy products dumped, and they tape off the dump and watch it to make sure that you can't go back in once somebody leaves to get a few canisters of butter. It really is, Matt. It's really incredible. And people are wondering about this whole bird flu situation, which I think we also talked about last time. And honestly, whether you buy into what's really going on with this, which like I honestly do not know what is happening to these chickens, but even if we just take the government story, the fact that basically to play nice with the government, you have to kill all the chickens that on your property. That's why we don't have eggs, for instance, at the grocery store. That's why these grocery stores like Trader Joe's, I think is one of them, have put limits. You can only buy 1 dozen per day per customer, because we have this egg shortage now. Eggs are going up to, I don't know, somebody on my YouTube comment section said $15 a dozen. And in some cases, these aren't even organic pasture-raised eggs. These are coming out of, farms where they're eating cheaper food and there's a lot of chickens crammed together. So people wonder about this, but it's the same system that has given us no eggs or expensive eggs at the grocery store is the one where you have these small farms where you've got regulators coming up and making people dump out their food, kill all your chickens, dump all your food. It's not a system that manages for the small artisan, if you will. It is a system that manages for the highest risk, the biggest player, and honestly, the only ones who can survive these rules in most cases are those farms. But then here's your problem. The second that they have an issue, we have no food. And so that's why a lot of people like myself a year or so ago decided, I think we should invest in land. We should invest in animals. And so we get about 8 to 9 dozen eggs a week. We're very popular right now on our street.
Yeah, do you have a food club I can join? Because this is saying, the AP is reporting the national average, and they say city average. I don't know what the definition of that is. I interpret that to mean like they've surveyed city centers or major urban areas, and that's what the average is, and they're saying $4.95 a dozen. That's not what it is here, I'll tell you that much. And to your point, it's not for the fancy people eggs. It is for the cheapest eggs that you're going to find at your normal grocery store that isn't like the fancy organic place or something like that. So yeah, I can imagine that if you have a neighbor producing in that way, that's a popular person on the block. And how easy is it for someone like me who has no connection to this sort of thing? Now, realistically, I don't know that I'm in position now to start producing food in this way. But if I wanted to find people in my area who are doing that sort of food club thing, is there a way to find that easily, or do I just have to, is it like the drug market now? I just have to know a guy.
Yeah, it is. Go to eatwild.com, eatwild.com. And that is, if you're not somebody who's just going to ask around at a local store, like, hey, where do you get your eggs, or ask your neighbors, you just want to go on the internet and look, you can find a place that, now obviously they're going to be large enough that they have gotten on this website, but a lot of them are not that big. They're probably like, I don't know, maybe producing 3 times what we are, or maybe a little bit more on the smallest level. But that's where I started back when I got into this world, before I started realizing how I could access it by word of mouth or where the places were to look. I just went to eatwild.com, and there's just a list. You just put in your address or your city, what city you're looking at, and it'll give you a map of who's producing what and a description of the farm. Another great way to get into this world is to look up your Weston Price Foundation chapter. Weston Price was a biological dentist at the turn of the century, and he was known for the research he did into why people are starting to get cavities when they were eating more and more industrialized food, in the early 20th century. He and I think it was his nephew, was a National Geographic explorer. They used to go around the world, and they studied indigenous cultures, people who had no access really to dental care, but had no cavities. Anyway, a foundation has developed in his name, very focused on nutrition and how that affects our physical health. And so they will also help you, like our Weston Price chapter here locally, they print out for you a list of the farms they've actually gone to themselves. And I highly recommend that too. Once you go to eatwild.com, you're going to want to call them up and ask them if you can come visit. I say if people don't let you come visit their farm, I would skip to the next farm. I think most people in this world of food freedom are very, very interested in having the customers come see the product, see the hard work that they've invested in it. And, it's funny, when my husband and I were getting married, we were looking for the different food options for the wedding. I'm obviously like down this rabbit hole. So I wanted to source everything locally and sort of the level of care for the environment, the animals, and nutrition that I seek in my food. So anyway, we found this one person who could provide pork, but they wouldn't let me go to the farm. So, and they told me it was, a bunch of reasons like, I don't know, disease or whatever else. That's what you'll hear a lot of. But I decided, no, I want to go see where the animals are raised. I want to see what they look like. I want to make sure they're telling the truth. And so it's a great way to just get involved in your community. I mean, I know it sounds like a lot of work, but I found it to be so rewarding to get to know your neighbors and the people who are producing your food. It really, I think, pairs so well with this idea of having a local decentralized economy, local decentralized government, because you know, you can even get out of the currency system. Honestly, start bartering with people if you've got something to give. Like my dad's a doctor. In some cases, he does curbside medicine for milk or eggs, and they'll become your friends. And it will be a great way to not just feed yourself physically, but also I think spiritually, to just get involved in the food movement this way.
Well, I'm screwed. All I have is like a limited set of podcast production knowledge, and I don't know if they'll trade for that.
Matt.
But
Farmers need media help, trust me.
Maybe
I
could
ask for
do
it all
that
the time.
No, there's this great point on Bryson's website. It's a quote from Joel Salatin, who we talked about last time and who you interviewed. But really, the quote paraphrase is just about how strange and new and unnatural it is to be disconnected from your food in the way that you're describing. Now, we all are so accustomed to just going to the store and buying some industrialized product that's canned or, you know, packaged or whatever. And we don't think consciously about where our food actually comes from in the way you described with your wedding. And I include myself in that. You know, I think about other things on a daily basis. I'm looking at all the news. I'm thinking about assembling something interesting to say about it or how to analyze. I don't think about all the things that went into that sandwich I ate or something like that. And I think it is very important to be connected. It's another way in which our modern society is so different than every other generation that came before us, and you don't even really think about it. But I think it's an important point. And
yes, to that point. Okay, number one, if you want to be a part of the resistance, like you really, you know, the resistance to centralized government overreach, there is no better place to start than food, and not even just for that purpose, but for your own health. The food movement at this point, you know, we think about these big decisions like you're talking about, these big news stories that cross our desks or our phones. Who are we going to vote for president? You know, what are we going to support for some other legislation, some bill, that executive order or whatever that's come out. But truly, the resistance is in what you do. And I'm not saying those things don't matter, but think about all the little choices that you do every day. These little things that you do every day that start to add up over time. You know, I used to watch Dave Ramsey a lot, and he would talk about like saving $1 a day for 50 years or something like that. And you don't think about the difference that can make. It's the same thing with food. And so I tell people, this is the resistance. I mean, this is a political act. Making your decisions to support your local farmers is a political act and is an act of resistance from, you know, I don't want to go too far into like authoritarianism, but it kind of is starting to look that way. I mean, we just talked about people not being able to dumpster dive for their own food. And then secondly, to your point about how different it is from generations before, I truly do believe this is a huge part of why people feel so dissociated, disconnected from their friends, from their communities, because it used to be that 150 years ago, we had to see people face to face in order to eat. We had to see them because we had to buy our stuff, not just to eat, but so many things that were involved in our economy. We couldn't just order on Amazon. And so we had relationships based on economy. We had relationships based on going to the butcher shop. My dad has a story about their dog. They used to let their dog out in the morning, and she would just wander down to the butcher shop and hang around outside the bakery, and they would get all the scraps, and then she'd come home at the end of the day. Yeah. Because all these little food stores, they knew the dog and they knew the family, and even the dog had a social life back then. Think about dogs now. They're stuck inside from 9 to 7 while we're at work. And yeah. So now that we don't have that anymore, we're just on our phones. We're talking to people on Facebook. And I think it's not necessarily been something people have totally chosen. It's kind of creeped up on us insidiously. But I do think there's something to that we lost that economy of relationship. Yeah. The relationships we had based on exchanging currency for one good or another.
I want to come back to the government and the regulatory environment a little bit too, because it's not just how it impacts our social life. It's also just the question of, for what purpose is the government designed, or what is it trying to achieve? And a lot of the stuff that I hear you talking about and Bryson talking about and Joel Salatin and the rest of them, to me, it sounds a lot like the regulatory environment for guns, because I pay more attention to that personally. And what I mean by that is silly, arbitrary rules that people find ways to get around, and you have to tightrope the law in a way that effectively achieves what you're looking to, but is actually within the confines of the law. So you're circumnavigating the law or circumventing the law. And Bryson talks a little bit about that, but I just thought his commentary on what is the purpose of the law? Why do we have this? What is it trying to achieve? I thought that commentary was interesting.
If you're going to do something like this, you need to be really astute on your paperwork and covering your back, which the fact that farmers have to do that to protect themselves from the government is really, really crazy. And you go to the Rogue Food Conference, you'll learn about their phrase is circumnavigating the law and not compliance. And I know, at least I think I know, just about every way to circumnavigate these laws. My problem is, as farmers, as food producers, should we be in the position to have to circumnavigate laws to sell our goods, or should the law be put in place? Should the law be written to support the food producers, support the farmers?
Yeah, it's spot on. I mean, that's part of the whole pet food consumption thing. It's like once you, I probably should have said this at the beginning. Once you sign these permit deals with the government, you are signing a contract with them. I had a friend who was looking at a USDA dairy for goats. She was going to do goat milk products, and she was going to have it inspected by the USDA, and she had this inspector come in and she was going to sign the form. And the guy said, okay, just want to make sure you understand that this allows us access to your property anytime. And she was like, yeah, I mean, you come see the goats anytime. come check out the goats. And he was like, no, I mean, anything on your property. We can come look at your computer. We can come check in your closet. We have access to your property. And she was like, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. So that idea went out the window.
Wait,
but basically, you're signing a contract.
I feel like I don't follow that fully. Who wants to monitor whom? Is that the customer? Repeat that for me. I'm unclear.
Well, basically, just like they have access to your property. If they decide that there's something fishy going on.
Oh, you're talking about like the government for the permits, or who's the they in this context?
Yeah, like the inspector.
Okay,
the inspector said to her, we don't just have access to come look at your goats.
Yeah.
We have access to your whole property. So if you're not ready to sign a contract that says we have access to your entire property, not just your goats, then
that's the thing that confuses me. When you say contract, I'm thinking that's in the food club context, like person A wants service or
permit.
good. Yeah, the contract is like a pursuant to this regulator permit, right?
Right. That's what I mean. I mean, basically what I was saying was the permit is a contract. When you get a permit to sell food and you sign that, you are signing a contract with the government, and you are handing over your rights to the government in order to do something that you're already legally allowed to do. This is the crazy thing. They have convinced us that we need their permits, and that's what I'm starting to buy into too, as if I need another reason. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, contract implies mutually consenting parties, and it's like if someone comes to your house and points a gun at you and says, how about you sign this piece of paper agreeing to give me all your money and I will not point the gun at you anymore? That's not really a contract. That is an extortion scheme.
It's coercion. Yeah, it is coercion in a lot of cases. However, you do have people like Mark Baker at Baker's Green Acres. He's in Michigan. I had him on. He was a pork guy who learned this lesson the hard way. And he's a big advocate of no more permits. Don't sign the permits, because the second you sign the permit, you're handing over your rights. Now, I have lots of friends in the farming world who think, no, that's not true. This is like overkill. Just sign the permit and do above board work and don't do anything shady and you'll be fine. But that gives a lot of trust to the regulators, and you're trusting they're not going to change the regulations on you. You've signed the permit, and you're agreeing to do what they say. Now, in some cases, maybe you're already doing what they say you should do anyway. But like, let me give you an example in my case. A lot of people that buy eggs on like farm fresh eggs, if you want to call them that, even though what that really means, but people who like getting their eggs from chickens, they down the street, organic feed, that kind of thing. Chickens are out on grass. They don't want their eggs washed because the eggs will last much longer with what they call the bloom on the outside. So it's a protective covering that the chickens, once it goes through the chicken and comes out the other side, it has this protective coating on it. It'll last a long time. It'll keep the nutrition in there longer. But if you have the permit in Florida that allows you to sell eggs, then you have to wash them. And you not only have to wash them, you have to wash them with a government approved cleaner. In some cases, this is toxic stuff that people like me don't want to use on our eggs. So we don't want to wash them anyway. We definitely don't want to wash them with bleach. But if you sign the permit, you're saying you're going to do it. Now, I know somebody who does this poultry permit. He's got a much bigger operation than I do. And he didn't want to do the permit because of that washing issue, but he happened to be at a lunch where there were the state regulators, and he said, I don't really want to do the permit. I'm going to do the pet food consumption one, the wink wink one, because I don't want to have to wash my eggs. My customers don't want washed eggs. And this lady said, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. You don't have to wash the eggs. We're not going to come in and try to shut you down for that. And he took her at her word.
Oh, no.
I would never do that. I think that's totally
yeah,
government regulator at their word.
That sounds like entrapment to me.
Exactly.
No.
But that's a lot of farmers, they're not the kind of people that are going to screw you. So they don't necessarily assume they're going to get screwed. It's like the person that you're dating when they check your phone all the time. It's like, you're probably cheating because you think I'm cheating. You know what I mean? And that's how it is. It's like farmers, they're not trying to screw you, but the government kind of is. And so they get into these trusting relationships.
Yeah. Well, before we're finished up, I did want to check in on the other story that I know you'd been talking about. I haven't paid attention to this at all, but I have heard that the Gulf of Mexico was renamed by the Trump administration. And you're telling me that the AP has been booted from the press pool. We have kind of a Jim Acosta episode, it seems like, over what the Gulf is called. Will the AP be allowed to question Trump with the rest of the reporters or not? And for now, I guess the answer is no.
It's tricky to understand exactly what's going on here because the AP, of course, is going to martyr themselves in this story and make it sound so terrible. They're saying they've been to some briefings, but they've been banned from other briefings, and they're saying it's because they won't say Gulf of America. They're saying Gulf of Mexico because that's in the AP style book, and that's what other countries say. That's their reasoning. And they are freaking out about not getting into these meetings, saying that, okay, Trump's punishing them for not switching the name in their reporting, and that this is an attack on the First Amendment. Okay, I have a couple of thoughts on this. I think, first off, it's not really an attack on the First Amendment per se, because you're not necessarily guaranteed a right to go to the Oval Office. This is a privilege in a way. I also think that I don't really believe that anything you get, no matter who's the president in the Oval Office or in the White House briefings, is entirely correct, because I think I tend to just be someone who thinks if you're going to do real journalism, you got to go get documents. You have to put in FOIA requests and look at it yourself. The White House press briefings, to me, are always going to be spun in a specific way to make the president look good. That's just what they do. So all these reporters who I can't get into the White House press briefing, so I can't do journalism. It's like, no, you can still do a lot of journalism outside of the White House press briefings. But so
I got
those things
denied
aside,
that new media seat too. I don't know if you applied, but we need to file a First Amendment lawsuit on this one. Yeah,
I absolutely applied for it. Even though, like I said, I don't go in with any expectation that I'm getting the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I see them as, they're advertising events for the current administration. I have my own personal opinions about communications departments and taxpayer, but I used to be on one. Honestly, I've seen them from the inside. The governments use a lot of tax dollars for basically public relations for elected officials. And, and then they'll also hire PR firms outside of their own communications departments. But anyway, long story short, I also, though, I think the Trump administration, I think you got to be careful becoming like the opposition and taking on their tactics. We saw the Biden administration being very direct with their coercive tactics to remove speech online. I was certainly one of those people that was affected by that. I was fired from my day job at the Department of Natural Resources in Washington State because I refused to censor doctors and scientists on my podcast. This all happened under the umbrella of the Biden administration sounding the alarm about misinformation, telling people they've got to remove all these misinformation points or people are going to die during COVID. This was the climate under which we were all censored. So I really do question these journalists who are now freaking out about the First Amendment because the AP can't get into the Oval Office. when they were completely silent while this was happening under the Biden administration in far worse terms. You being essentially punished for wrong think. But I would say to those in the Trump administration or people who support the idea of saying you're not saying the right word, if this is in fact what's happening, which, like I said, I don't know.
It seems like they've confirmed it. There was a statement that came out last night. Deputy Chief of Staff Taylor Budowich at least said AP's decision, not to say Gulf of America for global reasons or whatever. It's not just divisive, but it also exposes the Associated Press's commitment to misinformation. So, but implicitly, he's, I guess, acknowledging that's the reason. But he didn't say it outright. Like, they are banned for that.
Yeah. I don't think it's a good idea to ban reporters based on their not saying what you like. I know that some people might not like me for saying that, but I think if the shoe were on the other foot and you had the Biden administration saying you can't come in the White House because you're critical of the COVID mandates, I think we'd be like, what? I mean, yeah, it's his right to do it, I guess, right? It's like, I agree with people who say it's not a First Amendment right to get into the Oval Office. Not everybody gets into the Oval Office. Not everybody gets in the White House press briefings. They do choose. And this is not the first time a president would have chosen to have reporters who are reporting, what he says, that this has been going on for many, many years. So I don't see it as anything unique. I don't think it's good practice to say, hey, you say what we say or you don't get access. Just because, like I said, if the shoe were on the other foot, I think many of us who don't really care in this particular case would find it to be unhelpful, at least.
Yeah, I'm of two minds. Obviously, I don't want the federal government doing viewpoint discrimination in really any context, and this certainly could be a context. On the other side of it, though, to the point that you made, you don't really have a right to be in the press pool in that way. And those determinations will have to be made somehow. Now, it could be explicitly like, you're an idiot and I don't like your opinion, so go away. Or it could just be like, that guy has annoyed me over time, so he's gone. And I guess what I'm saying is I don't know how those distinctions get made, who's in and who's out, without some level of, if not outright viewpoint discrimination, like tangential or viewpoint discrimination by proxy. Like, I just don't like your stupid face, and what you say has a lot to do with the way your stupid face looks,
Well, yeah, if it's behavior, like, remember when, you were bringing up Jim Acosta, where he got booted because he was interrupting. I mean, that to me is a reasonable, understandable, behaviorally based reason to get somebody out of it. It's like, yeah, you're ruining it for everybody else. You're breaking the rules. So just get out. But if the rule because in that rule, it's like the rule is you're quiet when other people are asking questions. It's not your turn anymore. But if one of the rules is you have to say what we say accurately, look, I wish the press would say accurate things. Okay. I left reporting because I didn't want to be in an environment anymore where I felt like I couldn't even get to the bottom of what I was talking about. I just had to say what I figured out after 2 hours of research, and that was basically nothing. So I don't have a high respect for my old industry. I don't think that we get it right very often, and I wish that they would be accurate. But I think, going back to the food thing, anytime we increase centralized power in the United States, I get a little bit of the hair stands up on the back of my neck. And it doesn't matter whether it's the person I like or I dislike, or it's something I like or dislike. I mean, I might personally be like, great, the AP wrote its own death paper by continuing to push all kinds of propaganda, by, really, it brought its own demise. I don't feel bad for the AP. It's not Trump that's making people hate the media or cheer for its extinction. They did it to themselves. And so in a lot of ways, they deserve to not have access anymore. And great if it opens up the opportunity for other people to go. I mean, but for the president to say, okay, you've got to report what we said here exactly the way we say it in order to go to the meetings, I think that sets it up for even if you don't like the AP and you like this situation, the next administration goes, you know what, we're going to use that same tactic, and we're not going to let your reporter in to ask us questions because they won't say what we say. And it just, I don't know, I think it tees it up for more big government type decision making. And so I would just rather them factually rebut the AP rather than say you can't come to the meetings. Though, like you said, Matt, not everybody gets to go. And that's fine. Cycle them in and out based on availability of spots and other people that want to get in. But to do it overtly like this, I don't like the precedent it sets.
Well, that's my guest, Alison Morrow. Find her at alisonmorrow.locals.com or at Alison Morrow on YouTube, linked in the description for you to find. Alison, thank you for your time as always.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks again to my guest, Alison Morrow. Find her work at alisonmorrow.locals.com, at Alison Morrow on YouTube, linked in the description. But hey, it is time for a Super Chat.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Knuckles.
And now it's time for Super Chats with Knuckle Hunkybuck.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
Hello, sir.
Mr. Christiansen, how you doing?
I am well. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. I will have to. I have to tell you that last bit definitely gets my blood boiling. Every time I watch something like Armageddon or Food Inc. Have you seen those documentaries?
No, I haven't actually. No.
Okay, those are great documentaries about the farm industry and feds cracking down on our rights to eat what we want, drink raw milk, etc.
It is so funny to me how many hoops have to be jumped through, and this whole food club idea of like, okay, you're not allowed to sell me the milk or the meat in that cut, but if I own the cow and you perform the services for me, well, then it's all square. Yeah, it is absolutely insane, and I appreciate that she's keeping track of guys that are very important when things get rough. People who know how to produce food in the way these guys do, gonna need them one day. So
yeah, and we have an inherent right to eat whatever we want. Like, that's just living creatures have the right to eat the food that they choose.
In fact, there are many people I'd prefer would drink bleach voluntarily or something like that. No, I'm trying to think of a counterexample. Should the government get involved and punish you for consuming a food, even if it's a toxic substance or a poison?
Well, no.
You shouldn't be deceived into it, obviously, which is what they're trying to protect against. That's what the safety rules do. But
well, and that kind of goes back to the drug discussion even. Like, if you want to take a substance of any kind, I don't think that the government has any right to stand between you and your choices regarding your own body.
All right, so I'll see you down on Skid Row very soon. I always knew we'd end up there together.
Well, and I'm not going to, but that, like, you have a right to, I think.
Without going too long into, I've had very conflicted thoughts about that in recent years.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. My whole problem with that is, on principle, I understand what you're saying. And then I observe the reality of these cities that are just rotting on that principle. And it's like, all right, you know what? Bend the principle a little bit, get these people scooped up and get them the hell out of here.
Yeah. And that is the bitch. Is sometimes reality does come face to face with principle and they don't get along. So, yeah. I don't know. Anyways, let's jump into some super chats. Not make this a whole other segment.
Over on, I'm glad that you found interest in it, and I hope everyone else did too. Over on YouTube, Injured Guardian, March 30th, 2025 is the next fifth Sunday. Find a local Baptist before then and ask about food at church. He'll explain and invite you. So there's a Baptist thing. There was I forget if it was the Wednesday stream or the Sunday stream. Something about food in church came up, and I wasn't sure if it was a reference to something else that I didn't understand. But I guess food in church beyond the ceremonial pieces, just like, you know, are churches giving people food? I guess they are. Not a thing I've experienced.
Make sure you go to the back door, knock 3 times, and when they answer, say the crow flies at midnight.
All right. You got the next one?
Yeah. Sorry. Long Dong John. Matt and Dank Demoss once made love, and he's been gay ever since.
Well, how could you not be? Thank you.
Oh, and I suppose that's probably a wheelchair you're sitting in then.
Well, it is a chair with wheels on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, as far as like half the internet knows, I don't have legs. So, you know, whenever I meet people in real life, if they come through town or something, a lot of times they'll say that, like, wow, you have legs. That's, you never see that. I'm not just a floating torso. Yeah.
It's you don't have functioning legs because you and Dank Demoss.
Well, yeah. That's you really want to test your strength. Any guy who can deadlift or squat Dank Demoss, I'm very impressed. Let's see. Donnie Biggerstaff. Since Wynn has the left-wing media ever called out an African American for child abandonment?
I love you.
I've heard varying versions of that joke over the weekend, but I'm going to allow it because I think it's hilarious. So thank you.
Actually, I came up with that one that I wanted to use myself, but you got it in before so. You
already stole Hunky Buck's bit, so now he's got to think of something else on the fly.
Well, but I was going to give it to you for free, and he gave you $5 for it. So
there you go. He wins.
Thank you, Donnie Biggerstaff. All right, I've got Schrodinger's fuckery. Ashley St. Clair is another left-wing victim of Doge cutting funds to useless entities.
I love you.
Yeah, apparently so. We'll see.
Not quite useless. It sounds like Elon might have found at least one use for it.
Yeah, momentarily, I guess. Esoterica Unbound. I look forward to my liberal friends who horn-dogged their way through the last 3 decades of the 20th century and snickered about what a weirdo Mike Pence is, suddenly discovering their inner Puritan because of Elon. Now, Elon Musk is and thank you, Esoterica Unbound, I appreciate it. Elon Musk is certainly the kind of guy who can sustain this sort of thing. Like, it doesn't matter how crazy Ashley St. Clair goes, she's not going to be able to destroy that man. If you're a man of more modest means financially, you're going to be wrecked in a way that Elon Musk probably will not. But the point is, and that you're getting at there, I think too, is it's not just about what women empowered by the law can do to men, which is incredibly damaging. It's what it does to the kids too. And it's, God, it was such a debate on X because she made that announcement and there were a lot of people saying congratulations. And I'm not calling out any particular person for saying that. Okay, you have a baby. We hope the best for that baby. That's what people mean. I'm not trying to throw shade in that way. But certainly this is not something that traditional conservative culture would celebrate. Like, oh, you got pregnant by a guy who's not part of the child's life anymore. And now you're working out how that's going to be arranged through some sort of contractual agreement financially. That is not typically like a celebratory moment, you know? Sorry, that was I didn't realize you were going for the drink.
That was terribly timed on my part. I could have done
be
it the
the
whole
first
time you were
time.
talking, and yeah.
Your thoughts, if any?
I don't know. Basically, I think Elon is probably pretty bulletproof on something like this because he has, like, he's not quite as resilient as Trump, I don't think, but he laughs everything off. They're not gonna hit him with this.
Do you believe the story as told? Like, you think it's legit his baby, or do you think there's any reason to think it's like it's not as presented or possibly fake?
I suspect it's probably true. I mean, he has a kid with Grimes, and you know, like if I'm looking at the two gals, yeah, they probably both seem like maybe kind of a similar type. Like I could see her being his type. And I mean, hey, good for you, Elon. Good for you.
Well, glad you had your fun. There is a kid to consider. I'm becoming Helen Lovejoy. Won't somebody please think of the children, okay? For the love of God. All right. Next up is Cali-based. I don't know if you have that one. I do.
I do not.
Okay, Cali-based says a great video exposing the homeless industrial complex in LA. It is all a massive money laundering operation. Yeah, the amount of money that they are spending in that town to try to deal with the homeless problem. And again, these are to our prior discussion about when people maybe ought to be removed from the streets. The whole thing is voluntary in premise, or at least it has been in recent years. So it's like, maybe if we just dump more money into renting out more hotels that these bums can go to voluntarily, maybe they will choose to be housed. And then they don't choose to be housed, and they just keep dumping more and more money in these people. When I say these people, I mean the public officials who are in charge of managing the homeless problem. They're cashing in. If people didn't see, I'd encourage you to watch the video he's talking about. It's about the woman who runs the homeless program, the program, the government program to shelter these people. She signed a $2 million contract over to the nonprofit that her husband helps to manage. And that is a violation of all sorts of laws and regulations, but it's just a whoopsie. Her excuse is, oh, sorry, my bad. These people are getting rich, billing taxpayers on the premise of helping homeless people, and they're really not. They're just cashing in, duping everybody.
I suppose I have a solution that could help get rid of a huge portion of our homeless problem. Is I don't know if you heard this, but
So do I.
recently well, no, recently Denmark said that they want to buy California. And I say what we do is we sell it to them. We'll give it to them for $35, but they got to move it.
Oh, well, I thought you were going to propose a Greenland trade, but that's not even part of it. It's one of those things like you pick it up as is, like free. It's
$35. You got to come and move it yourself.
Oh, so it is $35. It's not like the weirdly stained couch on the sidewalk that says free on it.
They just got to move it.
$35 or best offer, or are you firm?
Yeah. We'll do an OBO if they want to if they want to bounce back on that. And then there goes a huge portion of our homeless problem.
Yeah. Well, they have to lift all the hobos with it when they move it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Let's see. There is one more on YouTube. I'm going to come back to that at the end of the stream. Over on Rumble, we have Elbot.
I am not going to be niggardly.
Thank you, Elbot.
All right. I've got Yakko 1977. With every other government entity getting audited, it should be no surprise that Fort Knox is also being considered. How much will everyone freak out when they find out Goldfinger took all the gold?
It's going to be like Dumb and Dumber, where there's a bunch of IOUs in there when we break open the vault. That's as good as gold, sir. Those are IOUs. Okay. All right. Do you have GR? I don't, because I had GR next.
No, I got Steve OUK.
Okay,
next.
Let me get GR. Hey, my Chattanooga. Thank you for the Tennessee reference. I'm giving you free speech. Oh no, that's extreme. I got to cut it off here. That's how bad weaponized free speech, or that's how used weaponized free speech to take over. Or that's how they used. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading this one. What do you mean that's not free speech? Thank you, GR. I think that one got a little scrambled because I'm not exactly sure. I don't totally follow that one, but I do appreciate your support, of course.
Yeah.
Steve OUK, right?
Yep. Attention-seeking female plus billionaire equals press X to doubt.
I doubt it.
Could be. It could be total crap. I mean, it would not shock me to know that it has zero basis in truth. The only reason I think it probably has some basis in truth is because it does kind of align with Elon behavior prior. It's not totally out of character. Like if she accused Mike Pence of this, you'd say no freaking way.
Right. And I mean, like, it's like what's the point of being a billionaire if you don't get to, go find gals, and it's like half the benefit.
Some might say there are other points, but okay, I guess it is an available perk. GR also says Ashley St. Clair's Hillary Crowder's BFF. She does lame ass TikToks and wouldn't hit that ugly ass with my bourbon. I think it's real. I'm
assuming that's short for suburban.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, it is spelled that way. It's not like bourbon, the liquor. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for clarifying. I think it's real because Elon gets around. She sure has some goals. Check. Yeah, I guess she probably will not have to work again. Also says GR also says I agree with the father. I agree the father be with the mother, but he's disgusting for doing that. He should at least have kids with his wife and a mistress or second wife he's truly fell in love with, not just with randos. All right, at least we're one step toward something better, I guess. Listen, if you're going to bang sluts, at least love the sluts. Is that too much to ask?
Yes, you have to take care of your mistress.
Maybe Elon does.
Be a real gentleman.
He seems classy in his philandering in that way. Although he's not married anymore, so I guess it's not. Is it philandering anymore if you just kind of get around?
I
don't know.
I don't know. I think maybe it is. I'd have to look it up. Anyways, compound fracture. I think left-wing media is ignoring the Elon story because they know their smears don't work anymore and they can't afford to focus on smaller stuff when he's striking the heart of the swamp right now.
Maybe, but it's like I just can't believe they're balking at what should be a very easy way to attack him. And I don't know. Do you have a take on that? Why left-wing media doesn't seem to care about this?
Well, I think that they don't want to attack him for being a man whore because, I mean, then like what are they like? That would be like attacking him for being like leftist in a way. Like, hey, that's
that guy's a Muslim tranny. Yeah, they have no ground to stand on. But they never have ground to stand on, and they do it anyway. That's why I can't figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. And it does seem like they will use just every little barb that they can throw at somebody, not just like aiming at the big stuff. Just go for every little
aiming at the big stiff is what Ashley St. Clair does, actually. Yeah. All right. Your friendly neighborhood Fed. Fed. We Feds deserve no sympathy. Last year, I worked only 67 days due to paternity leave and school. I was awarded a bonus for distinguished merit. To be fair, most Feds are more useful the less they work anyway. That's right. That also says, Matt, has your wife ever made you funfetti cake? Of course. Of course we've bonded on funfetti cake. Why do you think we had funfetti wedding cake? It's very important. How do you usually prefer your meat cooked? I'm a man. I like to fence ride. Give me medium. All right. I want it cooked, but juicy. Okay. I want it perfectly moderate in that way.
Medium rare is the only correct answer.
It's acceptable. If I had to err, I would rather have it a little undercooked. And when you say meat, I assume you're talking steak. We're not talking, I don't know what else you would undercook. Yeah. But I would prefer slightly undercooked to slightly overcooked. I think any reasonable person would say that.
I don't do medium rare pork.
All right. What about
no chicken sashimi either?
Well, actually, I had one of the things I like to do because I'm lazy with cooking. I will put chicken in the crock pot, and you just put like some salsa in there. Or there's a friend of mine who makes incredible barbecue sauce, so sometimes I just put it in the crock pot with barbecue sauce. But I didn't leave it in there long enough, and when I took it out, I realized it kind of was medium rare chicken. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do what the USDA wants me to do. I'm not going to throw this away. I don't care if they come in here and point guns at me. I'm going to eat this chicken. And I didn't get sick. I was just fine. So medium rare chicken is okay if you have to.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. Medium rare chicken is okay.
It's better than throwing it all away. I don't want to be a wasteful person. All right.
You're setting yourself up for a lawsuit.
Well, yeah, it's not cooking advice. It's just
don't
practical.
Actually eat medium rare chicken, anybody.
All right. What the hell's your stupid joke before you're out of here?
All right. I just wanted to complain. You keep putting up pictures of Dank Demoss, and you're keeping them on the screen for too long. And I'll tell you, every time one's up, I start hearing the plastic in my monitor start creaking and almost like cracking. I try to scroll it off the screen, and my scroll wheel isn't even strong enough to lift it.
All right, I'm not even gonna shotgun action that one. I'm gonna give you your due rim shot.
Oh, beautiful.
All right, but still,
Get the hell out of here.
Thank you. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, sir. Looking forward to it.
Often don't steal my bit. Now,
Get the hell out of here.
There he goes. Knuckle Hunky Buck.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
We appreciate his contribution to the show. I'll be back with your super chats at the end of the show. Thank you for supporting the show.
I'll have to just circle back with you.
Time to get back into the news, and I'm going to get to Eric Adams, the New York City mayor, who was facing federal prosecution for a corruption issue or corruption charges, and now he's not. The DOJ has dropped those charges, And the reason that this is controversial is because, what Democrats, other Trump opponents believe the DOJ is doing is letting Eric Adams off the hook in exchange for his cooperation on immigration enforcement issues. It was a corrupt quid pro quo. Is Trump misusing the Justice Department to bully or manipulate a local political official into doing what he wants on immigration? That is the idea here. Now, before we evaluate that, let's remember the original charges against Eric Adams. According to federal prosecutors, and this indictment that they unsealed in September, Eric Adams received more than $100,000 worth of plane tickets and luxury hotel stays from wealthy Turkish guys and at least one Turkish government official. And this was a near decade-long corruption scheme. Remember, before Eric Adams was mayor, he was Brooklyn Borough president. So he's been in New York City local government for some time. He was involved with the police department prior. But the allegation is that in return for the travel upgrades or the fancy travel accommodations paid by these guys and supposedly illegal campaign contributions as well, as in they paid him, they're foreign people making campaign contributions. You can't do that. You can't knowingly receive that, at least. But Adams was accused of giving political favors to these Turkish people, including pressuring the New York City Fire Department to allow a Turkish consulate building to open despite safety concerns. So there were problems with this building of theirs, the fire department citing safety code X, Y, and Z. They're not supposed to be open. You had Turkish President Erdogan coming to visit. Turkish people wanted open. For that visit, Eric Adams apparently pulled some strings to get the consulate open despite safety concerns. And then, of course, so all this happens kind of 2016 and onward, 2016 through 2021, and then Eric Adams becomes the mayor in 2021. And prosecutors also accuse Adams of keeping a fake paper trail or fake paper trails and deleting messages to hide his misconduct. So DOJ prosecutors actually had they were preparing to bring additional charges, something like obstruction or whatever related to destruction of evidence or concealing of evidence. They were still working on additional charges in this case, and Adams was supposed to be heading to trial in April. Now that's not going to happen. And it's not just that the Trump Justice Department, through Deputy Attorney General Emile Beauvais, I think is how you say his name. It's not just that they're directing the prosecutors to drop the charges and drop the case. It's that those prosecutors are now resigning or have resigned from the Justice Department. So you had it's acting U.S. Deputy Attorney General Emile Beauvais issues this memo or issues this directive and says, hey, you guys in New York, you're going to drop this case. And he said explicitly the case is hampering the mayor's ability to tackle illegal immigration and violent crime. And in a statement, Danielle Sassoon, who's the acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, she announced her resignation. Now, a lot of times we think Southern District of New York, we think insane, loony leftists. I don't know much about Danielle Sassoon, but on the surface, at least apparently not. She was a Trump appointee. She apparently is a Republican. That doesn't mean that she is awesome. It just means that she probably doesn't fit the stereotype of like ideological, insane, progressive prosecutor. But she submitted a resignation letter to Pam Bondi, and she said that she's baffled by the rushed and superficial process in this decision making. She says the evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Adams committed federal crimes. And so you have two possible interpretations, at least here. One is the quid pro quo, the Democrat talking point that we're hearing over the weekend or through the week and over the weekend, and not just Democrats, Trump critics or people who think that this was an improper administration of justice. It's not necessarily partisan, though it often works out that way. But the idea here is that instead of seeking justice, the Trump DOJ is using that threat of charges or the pending trial as a political tool to get what they want out of Eric Adams and law enforcement in New York City, on immigration specifically. And that's actually the perspective of this prosecutor, Sassoon. She said as much in her letter. She said she believes this to be some sort of corrupt agreement. Yet House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries explaining that perspective on ABC this morning.
Before she resigned, the acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York sent the attorney general a scathing letter accusing DOJ of engaging in a quid pro quo with Mayor Adams. She wrote, rather than be rewarded, Adams' advocacy should be called out for what it is, an improper offer of immigration enforcement assistance in exchange for the dismissal of his case. It is a breathtaking and dangerous precedent to reward Adams' opportunistic and shifting commitments on immigration and other policy matters. How concerned are you that the Trump administration is trying to use the justice system to control the mayor of New York City?
Very concerned, and the situation is very disturbing. Mayor Adams has a responsibility to convince the people of New York City that he will be able to continue to govern in a manner that puts their best interests first at all times, and that he's not simply taking orders from a Trump administration, a Trump Department of Justice. Listen, this Department of Justice is not promoting law and order. It's promoting lawlessness and disorder.
Wow. So clever. It's not law and order at all. It's the opposite of those things. As though we've seen law and order out of this Justice Department over the last 4 years, excusing and enabling the unchecked entry of millions of foreign people into the country, while, of course, aggressively targeting Americans for things like protesting at abortion clinics or perhaps being too aggressive with their local school board meeting and having the wrong attachments on their guns, all those sorts of things. Now, just because the DOJ under Biden was bad in exactly the way that Hakeem Jeffries is cleverly describing, that doesn't mean that this move is good, of course. Now, it does seem like Adams has changed his behavior on immigration in some ways, and there's been question about whether he's doing that in response to this criminal case the whole time. It seems like he's actually stopped some of the worst excesses in New York on immigration. Is he doing that because he's seen the problems he's creating, or is he doing that because there's this secondary legal issue that he's trying to gain favor in resolving? And I understand why people would draw the conclusion that there's some sort of agreement between the Trump DOJ and Eric Adams to get what both people want out of this situation. But there's potential reason to think it could be the other way around too. Maybe Eric Adams got tougher on things like immigration or things that were contrary to the Biden administration. And maybe that's why the Biden DOJ targeted him. I'm not saying for sure that's what happened or that's necessarily what I believe. I'm saying it's a plausible interpretation of the events here. But the claim that this is a deal, that like it's the Trump DOJ resolving this with Eric Adams. They're both getting what they want. It's a corrupt quid pro quo, perversion of the justice system and all that.
Before she resigned, the acting...
I always forget to disable my clips. One day I'll know how to produce a show properly, but for now it is what it is. The duct tape rolls on. But yeah, if you think this is an agreement between the Justice Department and Eric Adams, there's a reality to confront, which is the case was not necessarily a slam dunk. I know we heard that the prosecutor saying, I'm confident I would prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, but you still had to. And there were ways to poke holes in that case. Jonathan Turley wrote about this back in September, or a few arguments about plausible explanations Eric Adams might have for his behavior that aren't necessarily corruption. So Turley noted that many of the supposedly illegal gifts that these Turkish guys gave were, their upgrades their upgrades on flights, better seats, their fancier hotel accommodations and all that. The problem is it's not actually clear, at least in Turley's analysis, that Adams knew of the logistics for such travel or their inclusion in annual reports. That is to say, did Adams know that these were benefits from the Turkish guys? And that would have to be demonstrated. As far as the allegations that Adams worked to get the Turkish preferential, or to give them preferential treatment at the fire department for their visit from Erdogan, preferential treatment from the fire department for the consulate for the Erdogan visit. There are the possible defenses for that that arrangement too. Adams could say that he didn't intervene because he was given fancy airfare or fancy hotel stays. He'd say, well, I intervened in that because it was necessary to avoid diplomatic embarrassment. A visiting foreign leader who can't go to his own country's consulate, for example. New York is a city of international diplomacy in that way, and we didn't want to go through with that show, so we had to speed things up. And it's not to say that everything Adams is doing is fine or that he's awesome. It's just to say that proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt was not necessarily a guarantee. Now, we also have Tom Homan's commentary on all of this because, of course, Tom Homan, as Trump's border czar, is not just involved in the alleged agreement here. That is to say, hey, man, get serious about helping us with border enforcement and immigration enforcement, or and in exchange, we're going to drop the case for you. It's not just that he's involved in the immigration end of that. Tom Homan has been personally involved in meeting with and talking with Eric Adams quite a lot. And we also know that Eric Adams personally met with Trump in Florida. I think that's part of this story. I don't know where it is in here, but we do know that Trump met with Eric Adams in Florida the day before inauguration. It's sort of hard to imagine that this pending federal prosecution didn't come up, but that's what Trump and Adams are saying. They said they didn't discuss the legal case at this meeting. But you got Tom Homan on CNN this morning denying that there was any sort of agreement as is being claimed.
You met on Thursday with the New York mayor, and he announced then that he would give ICE agents access to the prison on Rikers Island. You called that a game changer. A few days before Adams made that announcement, the Justice Department instructed prosecutors to drop federal corruption charges against him. It sounds like the DOJ dropped the case against Adams, and in exchange, he let you into Rikers. Is that what happened?
No, I think that's ridiculous. Me and Mayor Adams met a couple months ago.
You and the mayor sat side by side. I want to play for our viewers what you said there.
I think you're going to see things move in the right direction. If he doesn't come through, I'll be back in New York City, and we won't be sitting on the couch. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, where the hell is the agreement we came to?
That's a pretty direct message, sir, that Adam needs to play ball when it comes to immigration.
That was a joke, and if you play the tape further, he laughs, immediate response, well, I'm going to hold you accountable to. I'll hold ICE accountable, get what they did done.
If he doesn't do the things that you want him to do, would you be okay with DOJ reopening its investigation into him?
That's out of my lane. I'm a border czar. I care about the border, so let DOJ do what they do.
So the case that Tom Homan is making there is no, what we talked about was not our discussions, any agreement we had. It was not we dropped the federal corruption case against you and then you do what we say on border enforcement or immigration enforcement. He's saying the deal that they've agreed to is we need you, Eric Adams, to help us with immigration enforcement. And what we're offering in exchange for that, or the concession that we're making, is that we're not going to ask or make you and the New York City Police Department or other law enforcement in New York City, we're not going to make you do immigration enforcement. We just need you to help us so that we can. That is what Tom Homan says the agreement is. But ultimately, since this is, I guess a judge still has to sign off on this. I guess it's not. And Emile Beauvais said that prosecutors could potentially revisit the case in the future. So it's not dead, but you're not going to see this trial go forward in a couple months. It looks like this is going to be decided by voters in New York City. Adams is up for re-election in November. If voters think that he's a corrupt scumbag, they're going to vote him out in favor of the next corrupt scumbag, of course. And for the rest of the country, we're going to sit back and watch if Eric Adams actually continues, I guess, or maybe starts helping the White House get the illegal aliens out instead of filling up the hotels and closing down the schools to accommodate them. Well, it is almost to the point of being its own weekly bit now. And I don't know what I would call it. It's the transgender mass shooter of the week, or maybe the Tim Walz best friend of the week.
I've become friends with school shooters.
But there is another one. Thankfully, this is not an entry for another corresponding bit we could do. It wouldn't even be a bit. It would be a sincere memorial killed by Transgender Day of Remembrance, because the body count is getting awfully high lately. As far as I understand, Ziz, the leader of the trans murder cult, is still on the run. So hide your kids, hide your wife. In Mooresville, Indiana, this is southwest of Indianapolis, police arrested 18-year-old Mooresville High student Trinity Shockley, a female who goes by another name, as we'll get to. Police discovered she was planning a school shooting for Valentine's Day. That was Friday. That is also the anniversary of the Parkland school shooting, and she had access to an AR to do it. But the feds got a tip ahead of time. Local police, they were able to stop her. They discovered in her bedroom was something of a shrine to mass shooters. She had framed photos of mass shooters on the wall as though they're family or something.
Police took 18-year-old Trinity Shockley into custody Tuesday. She's charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, 1 count of intimidation and threat to commit terrorism, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit intimidation and threat to commit terrorism. Now, this all started Tuesday when court documents show that a friend of Shockley's called a tip to the Sandy Hook tip line about Shockley's plans to carry out a mass shooting tomorrow, Valentine's Day, at Mooresville High School. A social media chat revealed Shockley had been planning a mass shooting for about a year. During the investigation, police discovered Shockley had an obsession with mass shooters. Her room had a collage of posters of previous mass shooters on her wall, and Shockley confessed to a school counselor that she had an obsession with Nicholas Cruz, who was the Parkland, Florida mass shooter that took place on Valentine's Day back in 2018. Shockley's backpack had 3 notebooks inside of it, each with swastikas, the words kill, bang, I hate you all, die, die, die. Some other disturbing experts about mass shootings were also found in those notebooks, including that Shockley told investigators she wanted to prove that she's the Parkland school shooter Nicholas Cruz's #1 fan.
Well, why isn't this a Nazi shooting? We'll talk about the transgender angle. Why isn't this framed accurately as a Nazi shooting? Because she had swastikas in her notebook or whatever. I will certainly take the soundboard submission, though.
Die, die, die.
Okay. The key piece of the story is buried many paragraphs down. Shockley, who identified in messages as a 12th grade transgender person named Jamie, according to the messages on Snapchat and Discord that investigators recovered, transgender person named Jamie said in January that the shooting would be Parkland Part 2 and that she'd been planning it for a year. Now, the weirdest thing about this story is this girl actually lived with her father. If she had framed photos of mass shooters on her wall, that to me, I would expect her to live alone or live in some sort of odd living arrangement. No, she lives with her dad. And probably should ask some questions of that dad, too, to the extent it sounds like the rifle was his when they say she had access to an AR. I believe that means that dad had one and it was accessible to her in the household. Now, this girl is now charged with conspiracy to commit murder, intimidation, and threat to commit terrorism are the charges. She's being held without bail. Or held without bond until a bond hearing. Jury trial already scheduled for June, but also potentially relevant. This girl was hit by a drunk driver while crossing the street to get to the bus in 2022. And so maybe that also explains some of the crazy. Now, she had serious injuries, a broken femur, broken arm, 2 brain contusions, other injuries. She was hospitalized. In that story, her dad is described as a single dad and a 19-year military veteran, very close to her, as at least in this reporting from 2022. So who knows what's going on there? But obviously things have turned out a little sideways. Anyway, at least nobody was actually hurt. At least there was some sort of intervention and the plot was not realized. But in other transgender news this week, now I originally thought this story was some kind of parody, and I know people have seen this all over, so I'm not going to make you sit through all the clips this week. But I actually wanted to figure out what they meant by the concept legally. Now, when I say I thought this was fake, I thought it was some kind of parody. I thought it was like an Alex Stein bit. You know, you dress up or you act like a ridiculous character at a city council meeting, and that's the fun. That's the bit, is that you're on video, it's live streamed, and these city council members or whatever governmental body you're before, they have to keep a straight face and treat you with sincerity, even though you're being ridiculous. I thought that's what I was watching here. But no, in Worcester, Massachusetts, everybody was totally serious. Everybody was totally sincere. And so upon activist demand, the Worcester City Council voted 9-2 to become a transgender sanctuary city. They will not help the feds in any anti-transgender activity. So here's just a little bit of a local news report.
Right now, trans folks are under attack at the federal level, and we need to reaffirm our commitment to our trans community explicitly. It can't be wrapped in a "we care about everyone here."
This campaign comes on the heels of the first openly non-binary member elected to the council, Worcester City Councilor at Large Thu Nguyen, taking a hiatus from the council after they say the environment was transphobic.
It is your responsibility to stand up and fight for our people, for your people, for the people.
This is a democratic process, and I'm not going to be bullied or intimidated.
City Councilors Morris Bergman and Donna Calorio were the two dissenting votes in a 9-2 vote in favor of it.
There's no new rights that this resolution gives that don't already exist. However, there's the potential for federal dollars to be taken away from the city of Worcester.
Die, die, die.
They will soon, statistically. Of course, in premise, this doesn't really even make sense. That's why I wanted to figure out what they mean. A sanctuary city in the immigration context means you're not going to help the feds and deport illegal aliens. But in this context, it means what? Are the feds out there arresting trannies? Many might hope that they would, but no, they're not doing that. It just means, I guess, that no city resources or property are going to be used to detain people for seeking or providing tranny stuff. So hormones, surgeries, that sort of thing. But even that isn't really happening. Feds are not arresting medical personnel for such things. The only thing that's from the federal government that's even close to relevant is the executive orders that Trump has issued. But okay, there's the banning of the use of federal funds on sex change treatments. That's not arresting anybody. That's just not paying for it. So what do you need sanctuary from? We need sanctuary from you so that we have to pay for your bullshit. Okay. Then there's no men and women's sports. That was another executive order in areas in which the federal government has authority, at least. But yeah, if you dunk on a chick at the school gym and you're wearing a wig or whatever, you're still not going to get arrested by feds. And then Trump issued an order saying that the federal government recognizes men and women as a biological reality in their interpretation of federal law. So what is this actually stopping? Nothing, of course. It's just about maintaining the victim mentality and perpetuating the show, because that's validation from others is necessary to keep all of this ongoing. And so the perpetual victimhood and making up threats where they don't exist is a necessary part of the lifestyle. Where this gets especially bad, though, is when applied to child custody battles. Now, my understanding, I don't know if the law has been revised or what happened, but Minnesota law did that. There might have been other states. If a transgender youth, as though such a thing exists, but let's say there's some sort of dispute between mom and dad, like mom thinks little Johnny is little Jane and lives in Oklahoma or some other backward state, Alabama, whatever. No, I'm going to take little Johnny up to Minnesota to become little Jane, and dad is down in Oklahoma or Alabama and says, I don't think so. We're not doing that. Now, if mom pursued that sort of thing in Minnesota, the policy of the state of Minnesota is we will not inform, we will not facilitate, we're not going to help that dad recover the child that is being transed against his wishes in any way. That's what sanctuary status meant in Minnesota. It wasn't just sanctuary from like evil feds trying to stop adults from becoming trannies or something. It was like, we won't facilitate parents in recovering their children if they disagree with the transgender so-called treatments that are being provided. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's still the law in Minnesota. So it's something to look into. But I know that was a Tim Walz classic. That was a thing that at least was wanted if it's not currently the law there. And that's where a lot of this stuff gets particularly awful. But for these insane adults, there's no federal law against any of this. You can troon it up all you want. The feds don't care. I know you have to build the victimhood perception, but I'm trying to find some silver lining in this. Like if they all want to concentrate their insanity in these particular localities, maybe that's the most humane way to handle it. Okay. They're effectively building their own camps. and they're assembling in their own camps. You don't even need the trains, all right? I think I think that's a fair solution for pretty much everybody. You guys assemble over there at Delusion City or Delusion Camp or whatever it is. Leave the rest of us alone. But that's as we've watched for many years now. Leave us alone. Do what you want. Just leave us alone, unfortunately, is a pipe dream. It's a fallacy. It's not a thing that exists. Their existence depends on not leaving you alone, as in you must be there, you must clap, you must affirm, you must cheer. They are not capable of being content without everyone else's constant affirmation, unfortunately. We're going to continue to get demonstration of that. But it's time for Hoax Hate. I guess this was Hoax Hate, really.
And now, the nobody saw it happen, but it's totally a product of Trump's America hoax hate crime of the week.
Ah, shit, it's backwards. You think they'll notice?
In upstate New York, a family-owned Mexican restaurant was vandalized this week. The family and restaurant patrons are calling it a hate crime. The only problem is there's zero evidence, not just of hateful intent in the crime, but hateful activity in the crime. And so police are not calling it a hate crime for that reason.
We're all just trying to make a living, so I don't understand what was the purpose in harming us if we're just trying to go day by day earning money.
This past Wednesday night, surveillance video capturing a figure fully covered and trying to break into the back door of Compadre's Diner.
Come over here.
Crystal Garcia, the restaurant owner's daughter and waitress, walked me through the alleged route the suspect took.
So they first tried to enter through here?
Yep, they try to enter. You can still see the marks. You can see how they were still trying to get in. When they came here and they shoved the aprons in that, damaging our heating system.
They took aprons and stuffed the AC unit outside the restaurant. After that, they then went on to stuff the pipes with more aprons, making it very cold in the restaurant the next day for customers.
Why the ignorance? We're all humans. Love each other. That's where I go.
What happened was a horrible thing. Really feel it was a hate crime.
This comes just days after staff members received a disturbing phone call last week, where the caller made references to the family's Mexican heritage.
Oh, it's like I'm never mean to anybody. Like I'm always nice. I love Mexicans. And like we were just like, why are you saying all this stuff?
Captain Dan Morley from the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department did confirm they responded to a call at the restaurant, saying in a statement to CBS 6 that the case is, quote, being investigated as a criminal mischief, but going on to say they have, quote, no information that it was a hate crime.
Criminal mischief. Misidentifying the tribal leader? That's a mischief. I don't know. I get what he means. Just funny way to say it. What I don't get, why is messing with the air conditioning unit, why did that screw up the heating? I don't know. HVAC guys, you could inform me. They're saying it messed up the heating unit in the building, so all the patrons were cold because they weren't heating the building, but then they show him he put aprons on, what is it, the air conditioner compressor, or what would that unit be? But that external air conditioner unit, why would that mess up the heating system? I don't know. But it's highly likely based on that footage. This looks like just a regular break-in or robbery type situation. And it's probably another Hispanic who did it. They referenced the phone call. Oh, just last week we got a phone call from someone who said, I don't even hate Mexicans at all. Okay, then how is it what's the hate message? You know what that sounds like? That sounds like somebody who said, hey, I didn't like the medium rare chicken that I got in my burrito. It made me awfully sick. Now, don't misunderstand. I love Mexicans very much. I just, I didn't appreciate the aftermath of the burrito that I received. And I wanted to talk to you about it. That's what that sounds like. The lady said the person went out of their way on the call to describe how much they don't hate Mexicans, actually. And somehow this is evidence as part of a supposed hate crime case. But yeah, I guess we're just at the point where if you're a minority, any crime against you is presumed to be a hate crime. If someone robs a Mexican, which is probably what was going on here, or at least attempting to, that's a hate crime. Well, did they say they hate Mexicans? No, they didn't. But the victim was Mexican, so it's a hate crime. Okay, but that's the thing about a lot of crime. It tends to be intra-racial, as in within racial groups. So it's very likely that this crime was committed by another Hispanic, just statistically. But for now, no suspect identified. So actually, if you zoom in here, can you see the guy doing a Nazi salute? Maybe that's the evidence. He's clearly doing the Elon right there. So maybe it's true as told. But in San Leandro, this is the East Bay of California, a black woman named Sonia Reed supposedly had her nice white fence at her newly purchased home vandalized with graffiti that says "No Black." She just bought the house and she wants to paint this fence, but now someone has defaced it.
For more than a week, the racist graffiti spray painted on Sonia Reed's fence in San Leandro has served as a chilling reminder that hate is very close to home.
I don't know what empowers people to be that rude and ugly.
The words "No Black" spray painted onto a fence Reed wants to paint white. She has lived a hard life, purchased the home in December, and wanted to make it her own. Something she says some of her neighbors do not like. One in particular.
This is a straight downright attack. The lady came out of her house and told me to my face she did not want to come out of her house and look into my black face right across the street from her.
Why? Because she has the money to purchase a home? Give credit what credit is due.
The Alameda County Sheriff's Office says it has been investigating this case since last Thursday as a hate crime.
You have a right to live where she want to live.
Cynthia Adams is president of the Oakland chapter of the NAACP.
This is not going to happen again in San Leandro, Oakland, Hayward, anywhere in the Bay Area. Enough is enough, and we're going to fight this.
It's very hurtful. But I'm not my ancestors. I have a voice.
Still, Reed says she will likely sell the house. So far, no arrests have been made.
Okay, how is there no suspect when part of her story is, there's a woman who came over and said, I don't like that you're black and you live here? Wouldn't that be like the first place you'd investigate? If you think that that someone hates black people this much in the neighborhood, maybe it's the lady who came over and told me about how much she hates black people. Maybe we should start there with the investigation. Now, maybe they're not even connected though. Are we sure that someone wasn't just disputing her color choice on the fence? Because it doesn't say no blacks. It says no black. Maybe it's no, comma, black. As in, hey, since you're thinking of repainting, have you considered black? To honor all the blacks around here. How else do you explain no black as the message? Now, it is, of course, awfully convenient that she wanted to repaint the fence, and now she has, a way to crowdfund the repainting of the fence. Oh, wow, you've found a bag of money for your home improvement project. She has a GoFundMe up, $1,500 raised to spruce up the place as she preps it for sale now, even though she just bought it like a couple months ago, because it's so racist there. She just didn't know how racist the neighborhood was. Is this the new version of flipping houses? You buy a piece of crap. That house does not look that great. Maybe it's awesome on the inside. I don't know. But you buy a piece of crap, you fake a hate crime, you use the fake hate crime to cash in to fix it, and you flip the house, you sell it to someone for profit. This is a new business opportunity for Property Brothers, Chip and Joanna, all those people, all those property flippers. She's got a great idea here. Give this lady a show. And there's so much racism in Greater Oakland, though. You heard from the NAACP lady there. That's the problem with the East Bay. It's not all the criminals of color. It's white racism in the East Bay of California. Now, Oakland proper is 21% black. That, of course, is greater than the national black population. San Leandro is 10% black. That's still significant, though. Nobody who has a big problem with black people in their neighborhood chooses to live in Oakland or San Leandro for that reason. They'll move out. And maybe it won't just be their racism that makes them move out. It's because it's still extremely expensive to live there. I don't know what this house sold for, but I look it up. San Leandro's median home price is still over $800,000. So you can bet this lady paid a lot of money for this house. And you actually see that in the story, like that nobody's racist there. You have this neighbor who's outraged about what happened. He says, yeah, I've lived here for 8 years. I've never experienced racism. Okay. So then what's the variable that changed? Because if there was some evil racist person who hates black people and has been living there the whole time, why didn't this evil racist person target you, fellow black man? Why did he or she allow you to live there? Why did this neighborhood racist suddenly become very racist only when this lady showed up? When the crazy lady moved in, then suddenly the racist emerged. That's really odd. And the explanation is that she did it herself to raise money and draw attention. And that's why she has it left up, by the way. Did you catch in the story? For over a week, the no black graffiti on her fence. What? Why? Get some paint and paint over it. Why do you want this bizarre message on your home? Why would you leave the message up? It's because it's intentional. And to the original point, like maybe if you can't identify a suspect, maybe talk to the person who she says came and racially accosted her, this neighbor of hers. That story is repeated in the GoFundMe explanation as well. Oh, she came to visit her new home, and she was immediately met with racist slurs and hate from the neighbors. After these verbal attacks, she then found her house spray painted with no blacks. But that quote's wrong. It's no black. Just her. That black. I'm fine with blacks in general, just not that black. No black. You, black. I say no to you. But again, she's saying that that she had some sort of verbal confrontation beforehand, and nobody is able to investigate that verbal confrontation. It's very odd. Anyway, that will do it on content for the show this evening. Let's catch up with Super Chat, and we'll call it a night. I know I left off with Great White over on YouTube and Tippy. Let me see what Great White has to say. Matt and Dank Demoss made love, and she posted about his love child on X on Valentine's Day. I can get in his super chats. Oh, well, that's wait, I can get in. Wait, oh, I see. You can get in, like she fits in them. I see. Okay. It took me a second, but I got the reference. Thank you, Cray White. I really appreciate it. K. Drake. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Neither. Elon came first, and now all my eggs are autistic and headed to Mars. All right.
I love you.
I saw that joke too. Well, at least Elon can still afford eggs. Congratulations. Who knows? We still don't know. Was there some kind of paid scientific operation to make this baby happen, or was it just the old-fashioned way? Still don't know, I guess. Oh, man. Night Mantis 1. Hey, Matt. Excellent interview. You goats to do more of them. Okay, I mean, I'm still gonna.
I love you.
That was such a reach, such a dad joke. Since we're honoring dads this evening, dads who are committed to the right things, we're going to honor this dad joke. No, I'm glad you like Allison. Allison's great. And of course, the plan is to keep Allison around. She'll be stopping by every month, 6 weeks or so, whatever the interval will be. And I expect that we'll probably talk about stuff non-farming related. I don't want her to get just set in one particular box in that way, though she's very passionate about it. And the thing about Allison is she's living the life. It's not just that these things are important in like a philosophical way to her, though they are. These are things we should all think about. But she's living the life, like decided to move across the country, go to Florida. As she said, invest in land, invest in animals, like start making your own food. Even if it's not all the food you consume, it's some. And every step is a step towards sustainability for your family. So I admire that she's living the life in that way. And maybe someday I'll get there. But I got a lot to learn until then. Great White says, your stream froze up around an hour 31. You were reading Super Chats. Might want to check which ones got the shaft. Well, according to my readout here, everything has gone through smoothly. So I'm going to guess that the whatever technical issue was probably on your end, Great White. Now, not that there are never technical issues on this show. There are plenty. It's just if the stream itself freezes, like if I have a connection problem, I get a notification of that. Like I can see what the connection quality is and what's going on with the stream. So, and I don't see anything. It looks like it was all clear. But, if we missed any, I will certainly settle up with those people. As always, if I miss your super chat for any reason, I offer a refund. You can just get in touch with me by email, and I will get you settled. Let's see. Injured Guardian, actual justice warrior covered the Turks' gifts to Adams. He's guilty. Yeah, I'm not saying that he's certainly innocent or that the case against him is obviously fake or that he's an awesome dude or Adams did nothing wrong, anything like that. I think that what I'm saying with Turley's case is that the case that this was a slam dunk for the prosecution, I don't know about that. Well, I guess now we'll never know. And I'd be curious. Maybe I'll see what he has to say about it because I know that Sean is very thorough with his research into topics, and I'm sure he's probably looked at every possible angle of this. And I'm not saying it's impossible that there's political motives in many different ways in the prosecution or what was supposed to be the prosecution of Eric Adams, either from the Biden DOJ, maybe in excusing all that from the Trump DOJ. I suppose the fundamental question here is, even if the allegation is true that it was a quid pro quo, it was all a corrupt deal to excuse his corruption to get better immigration enforcement in New York, would you take that deal? That's a pure practicality question. Now, of course, on principle, I agree. I don't think it's a good idea for the DOJ to be exercising its authority to try to influence law enforcement in states and localities. On principle, that is a violation of the constitutional arrangement of police powers. We don't really want to mess with that. For good reason. You want to keep policing local? All right. On the other side of this, immigration enforcement is absolutely valid federal jurisdiction constitutionally, and it has to be. Like for our immigration enforcement to have any effectiveness whatsoever, the federal government on behalf of the states has to do it. Because if one state is just a leaky point, then all of a sudden your entire country's compromised, as we've watched over the last few years. So I guess what I'm asking is, even if there was a little bit of corruption here, would you rather deal with that little bit of corruption and let like corrupt Turkish guys and Eric Adams get away with some awesome flights? Or, and the trade there you get is maybe we don't have as many illegal immigrants hanging out and committing crimes. Is that a trade that you take? On principle, I don't like the idea, but I think we're all on board with the results, generally speaking. But they're denying that is what happened at all. That Eric Adams and the rest of them just came to a friendly understanding. And those Turkish guys, they just who knows? They were operating on their own behalf. Tribe 84. Thank you, Injured Guardians. Keep it up, Matt. Do you watch combat sports? The same question about that. Also, how are your finances after the fallout with Blonde? Have you guys spoken at all? There's several questions there. So combat sports, no, and I won't revisit it because I just spoke about that. Just not my thing. I'm not anti. I would like to know a little bit about like fighting techniques just for my own sake. It's a question of what if you had to fight a guy with fists? Could you do it? I'm probably not prepared for that. So there's some knowledge personally that I'd like to have, though watching it is not something I really enjoy. In general, like I don't get into specifics about financial stuff, but I'm confident there's a future for this show. I really appreciate people who support my material, and I have no worry at all that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. To the point, last year was like a double whammy, right? You had the Tenet stuff fall apart, and then you had the Blonde fallout, and that's like basically every product I make had the desk flipped on it, and you have to sustain that. So as long as I am able to continue doing what I do on the internet and able to take care of my family, I consider that a success. And today I can do that. And that's because everybody out there who supports the show, you're making it a viable product. So I try not to get too lofty with my goals. I understand my role. I understand where I exist in this world. And I'm just happy to be able to do it in a way that makes sure that my family is taken care of. Now, as far as Blonde, have you guys spoken at all? No, and we never will. And I know people have their potential disputes with that. They think there should be forgiveness and reconciliation on that topic. I will just say that there were things done that I consider completely inexcusable, and I will never forgive. And we'll leave it at that. But good luck with whatever the future holds. I don't hold animosity. I'm not looking to be destructive. I'm not looking to revisit that in any way. I just... There were things done that you just don't do. And it's as simple as that. Stogies and boomsticks, instead of making Canada the 51st state and importing 20 to 30, and thank you, Tribe, by the way. Stogies and boomsticks, instead of making Canada the 51st state and importing 20 to 30 million liberal voters and just give them California, can we just give them California and Minnesota? Well, that's the thing is if we were going to gain Canadian territory, I would like to be a little bit more surgical in the operation. Want Alberta, want Saskatchewan. I don't know much about Manitoba, but it seems sensible. The French people territory out east, I want nothing to do with that. And Vancouver seems pretty, or not Vancouver, British Columbia seems pretty crazy too. But I guess there's probably most of British Columbia geographically, I'm sure is probably pretty sane. Actually, it's just Vancouver ruins it for the entire province. But yeah, trade our worst for their worst and get their best to join our best. And I think we've got a great operation. As we've discussed in the past, though, the only problem with that is you lose your coastal connections. If you don't have California, Oregon, Washington, or British Columbia, all of a sudden your access to the Pacific coast is out. So you got to find, there's got to be some sovereign territory, whether you make that connection in maybe Southern California down by San Diego, or you retain some channel like in the Columbia River or something like that. You got to retain access to the Pacific as part of the deal. Or maybe not. Maybe we just say, now you guys have to deal with China. Good luck. The problem is they won't. They'll join China and attack us. Anyway, thank you. Esoteric Unbound. Off-topic chat. Talked today with my dad about his first home purchase when I was 3. It was a brand new 2-story with 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, and attached garage. He was a 23-year-old factory worker making $265 an hour. Try getting your 21st century brain around that. I see people posting that sort of thing all the time, and I'm sure it's accurate. It is hard to believe. I mean, numbers aside, because all of that has been ruined by inflation, it's almost hard to believe that that sort of thing was even possible regardless of what the numbers were. Because for so many people, it's like you're starting out, you have a job that pays something close to like what you consider to be an average wage, but buying a house straight up, obviously you're gonna finance it or do whatever. But if you have nothing to start with, you don't have equity, you don't have parents who are helping you out, you don't have something to help you make a sizable down payment to get your foot in and get started in home ownership, it's incredibly difficult. My life entered home ownership in a very strange way. It was through the loss of my brother, and that home ownership, I paid for that house. Okay. It's not like it was given to me, but I just my choice was leave the house and let the bank have it, or you buy it and keep it in your family. And that's the way that I came into my first home ownership, which it's not very representative for people my age. People who are just starting in the traditional arrangement where it's like, okay, I have a small down payment and I want to go buy a house and I can afford this monthly payment on the mortgage or whatever. It's more and more out of reach. And you see people making posts and talking about that all the time. And of course, the left-wing progressive response is always like, oh, it's greedy corpos and da-da-da-da-da. Housing, like anything else, got more expensive when the government and its subsidies got more and more involved. And really, that's what we've seen over the last X amount of years, the last X amount of decades. The more that government got involved in restricting construction, and the more that government got involved in financing purchases, the more expensive it got and the more out of reach it gets for the average person. And until we realize that, it's not going to get any better. But I'm glad your dad was able to achieve it. And I hope that still gave your family some sort of head start, because if you're trying to start fresh now, it is really rough. And I really feel for you guys who are in that spot. Thank you, Esoteric Unbound. Tortuga says, Grandpa taught me that the easiest way to catch a polar bear is to cut a hole in the ice and cut peas around it. Then when he comes up to take a pee, you kick him in the ice hole. All right, that is also a mega dad joke. And Tortuga, I'm going to give you an honorary recognition.
I love you.
But I don't think Tortuga is eligible to win, unfortunately. So I'm just acknowledging, but I can't grant the entry for reasons you probably understand, Tortuga. Thank you for supporting the show. Injured Guardian, there are 2 Vancouvers and 2 Cartagenas in 4 nations. I've never heard of Cartagena. I know there's a Vancouver, Washington, right across the river from Portland. But yeah, this is a city in Colombia, and it must be one somewhere else too, but I've never heard of this city. So news to me. Thank you for that. A super stoner. Tried posting something racist, but accurate shite. And then there's, some kind of emoji that I can't read. Well, I'm sorry if Raja Mohan got you. I don't know if that's what you mean, but sometimes they can crack down on the censorship language. All right. Let's see. Over on Rumble, your friendly neighborhood Fed, he adds, some of those condoms that went to Gaza should have gone to Elon. All right. He must have a latex allergy. Seriously, Elon, stop sticking your dick in crazy. Well,
I love you.
Even if you are a real Fed, I like that kind of joke where it's like, oh, I should have made that connection. How did I not connect the Gaza, the Mozambique non-condom contraceptives, to be clear? How did I not connect the Gaza condoms to Elon in that way? Well done, Mr. Fed friend. Deus Ex Machina Prime Figs. Well, you can still say it, so I guess you might as well. They haven't cracked down on that one yet. GR Token S word. Elon is an African-American father who came home after he went out to get some Newports and an MD 2020. If I went out for Tamal and Coca-Cola, I would come back home, even if my wife was black. Well, I don't even know what all those references are, but point taken. GR also said, had to be a joke because the Lyft was a Civic and she was plopping into SUVs. Stop calling this fuckhead a rapper. Justice for Lyft and popped tires. Well, it's going to be great to watch this lawsuit proceed if it ever actually goes to trial. Lyft will probably just settle is how this is going to work out. It sounds like they will. But yeah, fair point. They were different vehicle types, although that Chevy Track, I mean, I guess it's technically an SUV, but that is certainly a light duty vehicle. Recognition for Chevy that it actually was able to move her. Dangerous Spaces. A few people mentioned the freezing around an hour and 31 minutes. Didn't seem to happen for me. I rewatched to check. I hadn't missed it, and it seemed fine. Not sure why it froze up for those few people. It must be. I assume they're watching. I don't know what platform they're watching on, but a lot of things have to go very right for a live stream to work. Just a few things can go wrong, and it is kind of a minor miracle that they go as well as they do. Knock on wood. We'll patch them with duct tape if they do. Thank you, guys. GR says, it's 2025. Why are women still expensive? I thought they were on this boss bitch thing. Shouldn't they be pulling 6 figures and supporting us? What happened to that? That is women's equality, I guess. You're right. Also says, yes, I'm resorting to unorthodox methods of meeting women, just in case you're asking. More guidance and less judgment, por favor, gracias. Guidance on meeting women? Man, if I had that, I really feel like I lucked out. It's hilarious that when I got so discouraged that I almost thought I was just going to stop looking. That's when my wife showed up, and that's what I used to say all the time. All it takes is one. My wife showed up, changed my life. Now we're happily married. We have 2 boys. Hopefully we'll have more. And it's when I got discouraged and almost thought about ending my search that the search worked out. So you always just kind of have to be receptive is the first thing I would say. And when you see it, and then you be assertive as a man, you make your intentions known and you say, I'm looking to build a future. Is that what you're looking for? Are you in on that? And if she says yes, then you got a good one. And if she says, oh, that's way too serious. What are you talking about? Well, then, you got a crazy and she's not worth your time, or at least someone who's not serious about what she's doing. But as far as how or where to find them, the only other thing I could say is if you feel like you can't find them, spend as much time as you can working on yourself as a man. Like do your best on your own fitness. Do your best professionally in terms of your earning power. Make yourself the most marriageable future father that you could possibly be. And inevitably, women will respond to that because the ones who are serious and looking for the right thing, like the father of their children, they're going to see those qualities. They're going to respond well to them. So if you feel like you can't find her, you're spending all your time searching and she's just nowhere to be found, take a break, concentrate on making yourself the man that she would want to find. And those two things tend to tend to collide. They tend to attract. So good luck with that. And I hope it works out for you. As always, if you're discouraged, it only takes one. That's what I used to remind myself, and lo and behold, it only took one. Dangerous Spaces says, if this question is too personal, just say so. Do you think parenthood, will it be 4 years in September, has altered or colored your view of what family structure a child should be brought into? I don't know that I'm saying stuff drastically different now than I would have said then. I would say it galvanizes that perspective, though. The reason that I'm committed to my wife and that I stay committed to my wife is not just because I love her, though I do. And the reason that she stays committed to me is not just because she loves me, though she does. It's because our commitment to each other is our commitment to our children. So whatever petty fight we have, whatever disagreement we may have, whatever things may come between us, we cannot allow them to defeat that bond, because our bond is necessary for the success of our sons and hopefully our future children. And as long as you both share that correct priority, all other things will be secondary. Your stupid fight that you had the other day, even if you're so mad at each other that you don't talk to each other for a few hours or a day, or it's uncomfortable, or all of that stuff is secondary to the fact that you always are focused on the most important thing, your number one priority, which is your children. And I don't betray my wife and she doesn't betray me, because that would be a betrayal of our kids. Fundamentally, you can't do that. We both owe them. We both have to give what's best to them. And so we don't mistreat each other on account of that. And you can think about that in the abstract before you become a parent. But once you become a parent, it really solidifies that. Like, yeah, these kids depend on us getting along for their benefit. So we don't really have a choice, do we? We have to, whatever conflict we may have, we have to sort it out because these kids depend on it. Anyway, all good on Rumble. I think thank you for the memes over on Odyssey, as always. Let's see. Blanket says, hey, Matt, Elon now has a baker's dozen because he never pulls out of the women's oven. All right.
I love you.
That was funny. I forgot that the baker's dozen is 13. But yeah, I like the commitment to the baker bit there and the women's oven. But I guess people say that in the context of pregnancy too. Like, oh, you got a bun in the oven. Why won't it let me? Oh, man. Oh, I see. That's why. Sorry. Like sometimes copy and pasting these messages over to my record of them that I just keep in like a Google Sheets here is easier said than done. Like the formatting's all messed up, and sometimes the text is actually white on a white background, and I have to reformat all that. And I know this is all very interesting.
Great story. Compelling and rich.
All right. Think we're all set there. Thank you, Blankets. I appreciate it. D-Live, we're good. Rumble, we're good. Quick refresh on YouTube and Tippy. We'll call it a night. Uh-oh. Speaking of parental responsibilities, we got some child screaming in the other room. Maybe I need to resolve that. But anyway, that'll do it tonight. Of course, thanks to my guest, Alison Morrow, for her contribution as always. AlisonMorrow.locals.com. At Alison Morrow on YouTube. Find her links in the description. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thanks to the live chatters, super chatters, everybody who makes the live production a success. If you're listening on demand, thank you kindly as well for supporting the show. Very much appreciated. Thanks to Knuckle Hunky Buck for his super chat assistance. Thanks to producer Tam this evening and every other as well. If you'd like to find more to listen to, check out the podcast page of my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/podcasts. You will find there not just the video show, but the audio feeds of the show as well, if you prefer audio podcast listening. Anything else show-related, mattchristiansenmedia.com or mattis.gay. That's where you find it. I'm back on Sundays and Wednesday nights. Have a great night and a great week.